Okay, everybody, I've done a second thing here. I've tried to uh, go live on my web camera because we got some people coming in. So if you're in the other chat, please tell everybody that I was able to jerry rig it this way. I got one viewer so far. That's Tristan Early says, let's go. Pear.824 says yes. Hi, yo. Oh, we can see you. There you are. You can hear me too, I guess. That's pretty cool. Now it's all starting to happen. Now it's just flooding with people, and that's good. Whew, you guys, I don't know. This was very, very sad, very frustrating, very terrifying. Oh, man. But you're here now, so we've got a show, new angle. Yeah, I'm in a hotel room, and I got my blue lights. And we've had quite the unbearable amount of problems on this one. I'm sorry about that. We're starting over a half an hour late. Hi, David. What's up, brother? It's between you, David, and watching the Vikings game, says Adam West. It was worth the wait. Hello, David from Calgary. I'm so happy. Blue lights, yay. Okay, well, you guys figured it out. I mean, I've lost a bunch of things that I normally would have in terms of what's going on and what I can see, but it still works. So I'm happy to be here. Who's that by? There's nobody by the door. I'm in the room alone. We're good. I'm glad you worked through it. So I guess the light isn't very good either. I mean, you can kind of see my face, but it's very dim and faded and weird looking, but that's okay. I mean, this is just what I got to work with. I don't know if I can really mess with that too much, but anyway, screw the Viking game, says Gary. Hey, David. Hey, everyone. You look like you're being sanitized inside of a UFO waiting room. Oh, you look good. You look great. Okay. Well, thank you guys. I don't want to just chit chat the whole time. Let's get into some content. Now that it's actually working, we're 2 minutes in. This is all you're going to get. I'm not going to have any other camera angles, and I'm not going to have any slides. But I wanted to talk to you guys about what's going on anyway. I guess we're going to have to do our Ezra stuff next week because those slides definitely require some kind of live thing. Look, just to get through the technical stuff, I use Telestream Wirecast as my software, and I've been using an older version of it on my machine. And I have absolutely no idea what went wrong. This was so heartbreaking, and somebody in the comments finally said, okay, what if you just did it by webcam? That's something I've never even tried before, but I did that, and it actually worked. So, whew, I mean, I've never probably had this much stress before a show ever. It's almost tear-jerking level type of stress, I guess you could say. The problem is that I set everything up the way I always would do. It seemed like it should be fine, but I don't know. They've updated their software, and I can't. It took a long, long time to figure out even how to get video to appear in the right-hand window. There's two windows. There's the preview window and there's a live window. And so just to get video to appear in there, I had to turn on the auto live function. That seemed to work, but even once video was appearing in the window, all I got was a preview flat screen on there. No audio, no video, nothing whatsoever coming out of the stream software into YouTube, despite the fact that it said I had an excellent connection, despite the fact that all this stuff should work. So I guess I really don't know what else to say except that if I wanted to do this type of a show, I guess I'm going to have to pre-tape it. I can pre-tape and record it in Wirecast. It looks like it'll make a recording, but as far as dumping it over a live stream, that's just not going to happen. You're doing fine. Don't worry about the technicalities. The most important thing is that you're here now. Well, there's been a lot of interesting stuff going on, folks. And so let's just talk about What's happening in the world? I guess. Oh wow, Laura donated $100. Laura T, fifth super chat. That's pretty amazing. I'm just listening anyway. I never watch you. I'm just listening to the message. Says Egon. Cheers, mate. Thank you for this birthday present. Looks like you guys are all here now. We got 1,408 people. Apparently, that's what that means. I've never done it this way before. But hey, you know what? It's better this way, right? Isn't it? We got Trama. She could show up. I certainly don't need slides to do Trama. Hey, I don't know what David was thinking trying to figure out how to do this on the road, but it didn't work out at all. He needs to have an Italian grandmother who can just be a tech whiz and know all these things and be able to help him out, you know? What? Oh my God, I'm burning myself. When is Trama going to sleep? He got a rocking chair in the corner. Look, I don't need a rocking chair. I'm actually identifying as Trama, so I'm more comfortable than I typically would be in my dotage. Oh my God, you guys, this was so heartbreaking. Really, really upsetting. You know, like I do feel like I just need to go cry, but hey, I'm on the air, and you know, we've got a show, so what the hell? Let's just talk. You guys enjoy hanging out. We've got 1,500 people watching, so this is happening. Sorry for all the chit chat. I've never had anything like this happen to me before. I guess if I want to do my Ezra slides, I got to pre-tape them, and then the question is, will they allow me to upload that or not? And that's going to be an interesting question. You know, will it even be able to be put out there as a pre-tape? Maybe that's what I'll try. You know, maybe I'll try if this software is never going to work, because you know I had to come to a special hotel, and the hotel has been heartbreaking because it's like, in order to get the best internet, you got to go expensive. But I'm trying to do everything on the cheap, so I got the package rate, which gives you a discount, and the food was way too expensive. And then they only give you like a la carte items, like you get one steak on a naked plate, you get asparagus on a naked plate. There's no garnish. They wanted $18 for bread at the table. I'm like, forget about the bread. They wanted $15 for mashed potatoes. I'm like, I'm not going to eat $15 mashed potatoes, man. I can't do it. I've been broke for so long that like paying this much for food is just appalling. It was a very heartbreaking situation. So I've got this other place I've been staying, and you know, that is a place that has a much more reasonably priced menu. I have a cabin, a private cabin. It's a lot colder out there. It's like 10 degrees colder up in the mountains than it is down in the town of Banff, which is where I am now. And you know, I don't really care about the politics with Canada and whatever's going on. I was attracted to this place when I came here in 2007, and I did a Canadian Rocky Mountains tour. And you know, I was really happy with the scenery, and there's lakes around here and attractions you can go to. You can read the posts live. We don't care. We just like listening to you. Well, I think what I'm going to do is I might make another show at my cabin during the week where I go through the slides. Can you talk about the friendship you have with Billy Carson? Well, I don't know. I've never actually met him. I mean, I like him. I like his content, but we've never actually met. So I don't really have a friendship with him as much as I just have a respect for him as a colleague and as a guy who's doing this. But anyway, I'm on vacation. This was not something that I ever would even thinking I was going to do. I was just going to disappear for 3 weeks. But you guys are here anyway. And man, there was so much stuff going on in the world. It felt pretty crazy to actually leave home and take this vacation. And I got into terrible trouble. As I may have told you, we'll just talk about some personal stuff first, and then I'm going to go into the main focus of the show here. It's been nuts. I drove down to the airport, and because I live in a log home and I have a log garage, my car had gotten completely infested with mouse poop and mouse piss. And so the first step I did a while ago was I had to wash the car out with a sponge and hot water and wash off all the carpets, because every time I go into the car, there's turds all over it, all over like the gear shift, the seats, the carpets, and it stinks like crazy in there. And so I've finally decided, you know what? I mean, I was only doing short drives to go to my massages. As you know, I've been getting massage therapy. If you watch my stuff, you need cats. Oh, definitely not. There was this guy, and I called him the meat man. And he would talk to me about hunting, and he would talk to me about, wild game out here in the Rocky Mountains. And I'll never forget one time I asked him, what's the best mountain meat there is? And I'm figuring he's going to say, bear meat, or he's going to say moose meat, or he's going to say elk, or he's going to say deer, or he might even say turkey, which would make me very sad because I would never hurt my turkeys. Somebody says mass arrest when? No disrespect, I'm just highly concerned. We'll get to that, Joe. Just let the story, it's like a yarn, it's got to unroll. Now that I actually am on the air, I've got to just kind of relax myself a little bit and not be so freaked out about how upsetting it was that this didn't work. We lost about half of you guys. It took me over a half an hour to figure out that there is a way to re-upload the show and everything. But anyway, you're here. So the meat man, I'm thinking to myself, okay, what's it going to be? Is it going to be turkey? Is it going to be, moose meat, bear meat, elk meat, deer meat? What is he going to say is the most delicious mountain meat? And he looks me in the eye, and he's got there's not a sense of irony. He's not laughing. He doesn't have a smile on his face. I say, what's the most delicious mountain meat there is? And he says, cat. And I was like, whoa. I mean, I didn't want to be judgmental, so I tried to stay in a place of non-judgment, but immediately the idea of this man breeding up a bunch of cats and then systematically killing them and eating them, it was just horrific. And so it turns out that he told me that there is a law in Colorado where you can actually get a cat license to farm and eat cats. If you can believe that, it's freaking true, man. I was like, whoa, what are you talking about? So somebody just donated. Have you ever played the Mass Effect trilogy of games? I have not. There's definitely disclosure in there. Alien AI harvests all advanced life in the galaxy every 50,000 years, and they're called Reapers. No way, my cats are my children. Yeah, I mean, look, I wasn't into this at all. I'm just trying to share this with you because it was so horrific. I mean, what would you do? What would you do if you're talking to some guy in the grocery store, he works there, and you're talking to him about what you think is going to be some kind of hunting story because he's talked about taking down a moose and whatever, and it's like, okay, well, I'm just trying to make conversation. And then he tells me that it's legal in Colorado. Now, I saw something where apparently 45 passed a law in 2018 that made it federally illegal to do that. But there were 44 states before this law was passed where you actually could eat these animals. So that's a very bizarre twist on the story that I got from my own personal experience. Yeah, it is horrifying, Carla Gibbler. So I can't even believe that somebody would be able to do that. But we are in a very, very interesting and crazy situation right now, you guys, as I'm sure you know. Everything is coming to a head, and it is scary. I'm not going to kid you. If we go through my posts that I was normally going to go through, which again, I might have to pre-tape that. Maybe I'll do it back in the cabin because I'm not going to do it today. I got to get the hell out of this place. I mean, I booked it for 2 days so I could leave tomorrow, but I'm not going to stay because it's way too expensive. It's cold, and then my room is on a high floor, and it's very hot up here. Actually, believe it or not, even in the middle of September, I've got a tiny little window you can see kind of back there. I got the shade pulled so that it looks really nice and crazy extraterrestrial in here. That was my mountain view. It's like you got to stand up and stare at it What am I going to do? Put a chair in front of that? I mean, you can see how small this room is. There's eaves over here that cut into the space. It's a very, very tiny little room, but like, I don't know, twice as expensive as the other place I'm staying. So if you try to go into a high-end hotel and you try to get it on the cheap, then you get screwed every which way. And so that's what's been happening to me is, the restaurant meal was too expensive and I didn't want to spend like, $200 on dinner. It just was ridiculous. So no, we're not doing the bread for $18. We're not doing the mashed potatoes for $15. We'll do one steak, we'll do asparagus, and we'll have an appetizer, and that's it. And even that, I think it cost me like $170. It's just freaking crazy. So anyway, this has been my experience, and I came out here thinking I'm going to do a great show, but I don't know. I have another rental coming up, and I'm going to get there on Saturday, and I'm going to tweak around with this and see if I can get the streaming software to work. But maybe what we're just going to have to do is webcam. Maybe I'll just have to do webcam and no slides. And, this is the kind of YouTube format that I really don't want to do, which is just one camera angle, no slides. But what the hell? We're having fun. We still got, amazingly, 2,600 people watching. And I'm happy to be here with you guys. It's good to have finally gotten this to work. For that price, they need to fill your trunk with potatoes, says Xander Stevens. Yeah, I mean, it's pretty crazy. And then also being a public figure, people are recognizing me. I've had people wanting to hang out with me, drink beer with me, show me all their UFO videos. And Scott Opper just said, David, I got Michael Prophecies. I can't wait to read it. Thank you, Scott. You're in Trevor. Sounds like my vacation in Traverse City, Michigan. Every meal was $150 for two people. Not too bad, though, but it still used to only cost $115. Is there something big happening this month, says K Adam 6868. Yeah, you guys, this is a very intense time. When we look at the total output of Ezra slides and what they're telling us, it's frankly terrifying. We have November coming up, and then up until then, yeah, so Master Kenobi just donated 20 pounds. He says, thanks for your amazing work. Are they about to play their final card like Werner von Braun predicted? Lots of warmongering going on. Yes. One of the main things I want to talk about is the latest Luis Elizondo videos. And we got to remember that this November situation, I got to speak carefully, is not really going the way that the powers that were wanted to go. They're not getting what they wanted out of this at all. I got to see. It's so funny. Turning my head this way, turning it this way. What's going to look the best? My nose just looks freaking huge. It's like this gigantic. There's this gigantic freaking mass on the tip of my face that's all lit wrong, and it looks like it's all swollen over here. Like this part is just crazy. Doesn't look right at all. It's because of the lighting. Hey, you know what? It's like Groucho Marx without the glasses. That's all I can say. Is it possible to put subtitles in Spanish? I don't know. Look, I'm just very glad that I got this thing to work at all. I will try to get it subtitled properly afterwards if I can. Sorry about that. You look great, David. I don't like all the crazy overproduced camera angles. Normally, I just listen to the audio. Well, I like the camera angles. It's something that sets me apart from others, and I'm happy to do it. But to be honest with you guys, I'm not scared. I mean, you have to remember that the Michael prophecies kind of hit me out of nowhere. I'd grown up without really thinking about this remote viewing that I did in the 1990s. I just went back to my own life after those years. But from 1996 to about 2000, I was doing something I called global readings. And then I continued to have client readings until 2005. I have like 500 cassettes of client reading. That's another thing that could potentially be used. But with my massive nose, I still managed to do readings. Ooh, look at the size of that thing. I mean, it's freaking huge. It's like, it just exploded on my face and turned into, like somebody hit me with a baseball bat, and I'm now recovering from this massive swollen nose. It's very unflattering. I wish I could do like virtual plastic surgery and just kind of like maybe if I stick something in there and just take a little, like, the edge of the glasses, maybe if I can kind of mess with it somehow, get it to not look so bad. But the whole key is that my face is all messed up because I used to suck my thumb, so my nose got mushed over to one side. So you got to kind of like tilt your face, like that looks right, but that's actually not right. So it's kind of funny thing. Anyway, don't get a Michael Jackson nose. That's true. Are you still proficient in remote viewing? Well, yeah. I mean, psychic things happen to me all the time. My friend, who I've been helping through his cancer process, he went through a very, very upsetting thing recently. And it was really heartbreaking because his wife has a urinary tract infection. He has a urinary tract infection, and it can cause hallucinations. It can cause back pain. It can cause your walking to give out. And they're both really going through hell right now. It's very sad. And I give a shout out to both of them. They know who they are. Making sure that they are okay. I've been donating to them to keep them alive. And literally, if I hadn't have done that, they probably would have had chemo and other types of radiation treatments and wouldn't even be here anymore. And so I was able to give them that option to not have to go through that. Wow, you guys, we're at 3,000 people. You still like to listen to me, even though I've got nothing to say, but I'm just kind of rambling around in circles. I do apologize for that. We're 20 minutes in, and I got to get more focused here. So it's been a wild journey. Having done these readings in the 1990s, it started in 1996. And from the very first day, it was identifying itself as some sort of benevolent angelic contact. And I found out from a friend of mine, Joe Mason, who had a website later called greatdreams.com. He was into crop circles, and he was talking to me about this dream voice. And he said that if you wake up in the morning and you can still remember your dreams, that was one of my practices ever since I'd gotten sober in 1992. In October, I'd begun writing my dreams down. So I had 4 years of that pedigree, 3.5 years, I guess, of writing my dreams down every morning and keeping the content, fresh in my mind after I wake up. You got to get up, go to the bathroom, remember everything, sit down at the laptop and write it all down. Would you recommend the Gateway Experience? Says Ravens Wings 33 and donated. Yes, I would. I mean, in fact, the way I learned how to remote view originally was from this book by Dr. Courtney Brown called Cosmic Voyage, and he had been through the Gateway Experience. And so that's how he got in there. So there are these binaural tapes you can use where it plays a slightly different sound in one ear or the other. And supposedly it creates a binaural beat pattern in your brain. And then you're able to reconcile those two things into some sort of pulse that then creates a certain brainwave frequency. So as you know, you got alpha would be your normal brain waves. There's theta, there's delta. And these lower brainwave states actually refer to the beat frequency of how fast your brain waves are going, which you could see on an encephalogram, electroencephalogram, EEG. So apparently the binaural synchronization tapes will cause your brain waves to slow down. And then you measure how many pulses per second, and that's your brainwave frequency. So if they're going slower, that means you're in more of like a trance state or a dream state similar to theta or delta. I actually found after a pretty short time of working with the dream voice technique that the binaural tapes were too forceful. It felt like I was mechanically forcing my brain to do something that wouldn't otherwise happen. But if you're not all that adept at this and you haven't had the experience, then yeah, the binaural synchronization can be a really great tool. But I found it again to be like a crutch. That's just my personal experience. I had all the tapes and I really didn't use them very much because it would just feel like somebody was hijacking my brain, forcing it to go a certain way at a certain speed, certain times. Like, man, I don't know. Anyway, we're up to 3,144 people. So you guys somehow found me and we're all here together. And I thank you for that. Let's see if I can move my foot. Yes, I can. So yeah, I'm trying to encourage you not to freak out. So here's the backstory on all that. In the 1990s, I had been reading this book on remote viewing. I wanted to try it out, and I did try the binaural tapes. The purpose of those tapes, though, is to have an out of body experience, and so that was part of what I was trying to do. And it turns out that in the process of working towards an out of body experience, that you will go through a state where you can actually do these readings, as I ended up calling them, just like the Edgar Casey readings. What do I mean by that? Well, again, after I'd already been learning about remote viewing, there's certain protocols that you have to follow, and that would include no analyzing your data. Whatever comes up in your mind, you're used to thinking of that as daydreaming or imagination. It's kind of on the threshold of dreaming. Saint Sunday says, "You deserve billions of times over." I love you, David. Thank you very much. Your first super chat. So, anyway, the dreams are something that you got to just work with. And when you're trying to go into the out of body state, you go through a phase where you will hear these things in the background of your mind, and you'll think that it's daydreaming. And a very important part, in fact, probably the key of what makes remote viewing so effective, is learning to tell the difference between thoughts that you generate and thoughts that just appear. And that's a form of discernment that's very important. The learning the difference between the dreams that you create, the thoughts that you create. Well, you don't really create dreams. The thoughts that you create when you're in a deep state of meditation, it's actually hard to think. It's actually hard to remember specific facts. Like last week, I couldn't remember the name of the film John Wick. You remember that? That's because when I talk about sacred science and this kind of stuff, I get into a very deep meditative focus. And the channel of the focus is very easy to pick up on, but then to try to think a thought that's outside of that immediate focus is difficult. So I couldn't remember the name of the John Wick films, which I should have been able to. But there's a art to talking really fast and without making verbal pauses. You'll notice as I speak that I'm not saying I'm not saying like, I'm not saying well, I'm not saying I mean, or the thing is that one drives me crazy, or the fact of the matter is that one really drives me crazy. Either one of them. There's just various things that people normally use to try to make themselves not get interrupted when they're talking. And is one of them. Is a way of letting people know that you still want to say something, you're not done talking yet. If maybe you've been interrupted in your life, you want to keep the conversational flow, you want to hold on to the microphone, you don't want to give it up. Is very destructive. I think that it pretty much ruins the ability to have a smooth flow. And it's a lot less convincing as a speaker. In fact, if somebody is doing well, I mean, and that kind of stuff, I can't listen to it, not for very long. It just drives me crazy. Richard Whitney donated $150. He says, "Thanks for all you do. Your courage and insight into the truth you spread is astounding and amazing. Peace, love, and light be unto you, my friend." Thank you very much, Richard Whitney. And Frank Ass Truths with Little Frankie says, "Leave it alone. If you don't know how to deal with spirits, leave them alone." Well, that's another thing. There's a dream voice protocol that my readings ended up giving me, which is similar to the remote viewing stuff. You don't want to be in any type of distress when you try to do this. You don't want to be upset. You don't want to be sad. You can't have the need to go to the bathroom. You shouldn't have to pee. You shouldn't have to poop. You shouldn't have to eat. You shouldn't be hungry or thirsty. You got to take care of all your physical needs. And that's very important. And once you've done that, once you've kind of ticked off those boxes, then you meditate very deeply. You're breathing, you're going into a very deep meditative state. And as you've probably heard, the old sophism, light as a feather, stiff as a board. What does that mean? That means that you want your body to feel light as a feather, but at the same time, you have this almost rigor mortis type of effect. It's a stiffening. It's what happens so that your eyes don't open up while you're sleeping, while you're dreaming. That's why you'll notice with rapid eye movement, people's eyes are moving around inside their head like that, right? That kind of thing is going on, but their eyelids don't open. So one of the things I noticed that will happen when you're doing this technique properly is you get an eyelid locking reflex. And of course, if you're going to get verbal transmissions from some type of higher intelligence, you want ideally to not include any of these normal verbal pauses that you would do. And that takes courage. There's a lot of courage involved in learning how to speak without saying and these various crutch words, crutch phrases that we all use that have become habit patterns in our society. The thing is that. I mean, first of all, there is no thing. And why do you have to say is twice? Get rid of it. You don't need that at all. You don't need to say that at all. There is no thing. There is no fact of the matter. You certainly don't need to say is that. This is one of the ones that Obama was doing all the time. And, I think it just kind of spread through our society, and a lot of people still do it, but it just drives me crazy. It's like fingernails on the chalkboard. David should live stream video games. That would be dope. I've never even played video games in years. Is it similar to out of body experiences, says Earth Angel, and you donated? Yeah, it is. Lori Jo Siegel says, David, you are a blessing. I thank you with all my heart for what you do for the world. Light as a feather, stiff as a board. Yeah, so that's a very important practice. These techniques really work. I've been studying remote viewing, and the whole sizzle on that story is supposedly people are getting 99% accurate viewing of a remote location, hence remote viewing. So you're putting in these coordinates, as they're called, and the coordinates represent some place that you're going to go out in the world with your psychic power. You're going to go look at something. You're going to go see something. Actually, I think I want this laptop up because it's better that way in terms of not having to look at the wall. The wall is a lot brighter, so we'll keep the laptop on. It's a cooler for my retinas. Yeah, I mean, when you do remote viewing, see there, I just did one. That's rare. I try not to do them at all. I try to have a smooth flow, and I call that conversation as meditation. That's one of the techniques that'll really help you with getting this remote viewing down, because ultimately it's learning to trust yourself. A lot of times verbal pauses are coming out of anxiety. They're coming out of lack of confidence in your ability to speak, worrying about people interrupting you. So conversation as meditation is one of the basic practices. And what that means is that you are trying to not use verbal pauses. You ban yourself from saying the word ban yourself from saying I mean, from saying well. Definitely do not say the thing is that. Dave, I'm finding you were just as informative and fun today, even with your humongous schnoz. LOL joke, love you, man. Mischief managed. Thank you. I'm glad that I got a kind of a top-down lighting here. There's one light above me right here, and you can see like my hands are very bright if I put them in front of that. My gosh, even the exposure is changing. That's part of using the laptop. White balance is changing. My face will get redder or whiter. Oh my God, it's so unprofessional. But thank you guys for being here. Mac N says, why am I getting a calling from the old gods of my ancestors? The god of the hunt, Surunos, calls, and so does the threefold goddess Morgan. Why and how should I proceed? Well, that's a pretty interesting question. Each of us has guides. This is one of the interesting things. We are not alone in the universe. We actually have spiritual beings that are always trying to influence us. They're always trying to talk to us. They're always trying to get a word in edgewise over our conscious mind's scattered information. And so this conversation as meditation practice is one of the ways that you can open yourself up to this contact. But again, probably the most important one is meditation. And honestly, in my view, if somebody is meditating every day, but then they don't remember their dreams, it's like, well, you're not really getting the point. The law of one says dreams are the golden road to self-integration, just like Jung said. And that's really true. Tarotina says, I look bright, shiny, sizzled, and glowing. with the 5,000 Argentinian pesos. It does not mean I'm getting $5,000. So for the trolls out there, we love Tarotina, and it's not what you think. It's like $4 or $5 or something like that. So just chill out, everybody in the comments. It would be great if somebody was donating $5,000, but that's not what's happening. So just be aware of that. Anyway, we love Tarotina. So this is something that, I started it out by listening to Art Bell, and Art Bell was the top show, paranormal radio show with 20 million listeners. And it was very exciting because back in those days, he had control of the AM airwaves at night. His show was syndicated across America more than any other show. So truck drivers would be driving at night. They'd listen to Art Bell. They'd listen to stories about UFOs and aliens and ghosts and shadow beings. And I mean, Art was fantastic. He had this deep, gravelly voice because he smoked too many cigarettes. And, maybe I'll even do an Art Bell impersonation here pretty soon. We'll think about that. We're going to turn into hash browns. He would talk about the solar flash. He had one remote viewer on there that said we were going to have a solar flash and we were all going to be cooked by the sun. And that was pretty compelling because apparently remote viewing is real. And the guy's saying we're all about to get flash fried. Barbara Vadas says, thank you so much for these weekly shows. Even if you're on vacation, I always appreciate you. Yeah, I mean, it might be fun to do that's what I'm going to do. I'll do the shadow slides in my cabin, maybe sometime during the week. We'll try to upload it, and I'll just take my chances. I can record in Wirecast, so that's what I'm going to probably do. And we'll just see if that's even possible, because live streaming, man, I mean, at least I can do a webcam. So shit, I got 3,600 people. We've only had, I mean, that's pretty normal. It's not too much attrition. Charles Lane says he's a targeted individual and he's a victim of, and he doesn't finish the sentence, but that's okay. Yeah, I mean, these are scary times, and targeted individual would be a thing that, I would hope that there are ways that everybody can work through that stuff, and getting your higher self contact is probably the best way. Oh, wow. Kenneth Bates donated $100, living in a dream reality. Thanks for publishing Michael Prophecies. Thank you, Kenneth. That's really awesome. I appreciate your generous gift. That's incredible. Kathy Rennick says, David, are you at a Canadian retreat? Yes. As I said earlier, I'm doing this very lo-fi, very kind of bargain basement YouTube show with no camera angles, no fancy anything. I've just got my Apple onboard video camera. I'm not even using like a plug-in camera. It's just webcam basic stuff. But hey, you know what? At least I got cool blue lights. It still looks pretty sci-fi here. And I mean, like I'm the only one that seems to use more than 3 camera angles. Even the higher end shows only seem to have like close on one person, close on another person, and wide, like Joe Rogan, for example. And I'm not dissing him. Tucker Carlson, same thing. I just came up with this very interesting setup where I had, multiple cameras that I figured out how to get them all together onto a switcher, and then make my slides in Keynote one of the camera angles. So that's actually camera angle number 6. So I have camera 1, which is wide. I got camera 2, which is over on the sides, kind of wide. I've got my mother is just responding to a comment that I made earlier at this. Well, I'm just kind of going around here, but this hotel had a restaurant that I was in for breakfast. I got in right at the end of the breakfast buffet, and there was this very annoying French music. I realize it's kind of like a genre where they all sound like they're really stoned and high. And so it's just kind of like everybody's falling asleep as they're playing their instruments. And the woman is like pitchy. She's not singing on pitch, and she's singing in French. And all of it is like really breathy like this, there's a lot of aspiration. There's a lot of breath coming out of her voice. And so I said, it's like a whole new genre of music, the stoned French breathy music. And I figured out she's definitely trying to seduce me and have sex with me, because she says chez moi, which means my house. I'm like, okay, I think she wants me to go to her house, and she's very stoned, but it's the pitchiness that drives me crazy. I did a vocal album with Larry Sire called Wander Awakening, We did 25 songs that I had to sing and 25 interludes where I was doing a narration over music. And we went through Larry's song catalog. He'd written many songs over the years, and I just picked the ones that I liked the most, and we co-opted them. We wrote some new stuff too, and I was the lead singer. And Larry had worked for the music industry. He'd had 500 different recording artists, including many top country artists like Asleep at the Wheel. He got Grammys for that album. He worked with Garth Brooks. He worked with George Strait. He worked with Willie Nelson, Dolly Parton. And so he was absolutely unwilling to allow me to be off pitch by even a micro tone. I could not be the slightest bit off. And if I was, the music just stops and I got to sing it again. So most of the way I sang that album is in tiny little chunks of individual verses. Never get to sing anything through all the way. But then that's called comping your vocal. You put all these pieces together and you end up getting a finished vocal. And then when you can listen to it, it trains your mind on how to sing properly, and then you can actually duplicate that performance. So I've continued now to play guitar and to sing, and I was just watching something very, very amazing the other day, which I hadn't seen before, even though it was two or 3 years old. It was a video by Steve Vai, and he's sort of like a fan of mine. I've heard this from a couple different people who are friends of his. They said, "Oh yeah, Steve talks about you all the time. He's a big fan." Da da da. I've never gotten to meet him, but I gladly would. But anyway, go look up Knapsack, Knapsack by Steve Vai. He plays an entire song on the neck of the guitar with just his left hand, and his right hand is messed up, and he doesn't pick a single note the whole time. But then he does this whole elaborate progressive rock song that's like Frank Zappa meets Mahavishnu Orchestra. It's an absolutely brilliant piece of music if you like that kind of highly technical art rock, which I do. So it's called Knapsack. And I watched Knapsack I listened to it over and over again. I really like Steve Vai's energy. I like the authenticity. And he's just a great guy. And he's probably the premier guitarist of our time. Now that I've watched that, I'm like, okay, yeah, he's got it. I've never seen anybody do anything like that before. Mira Fox says, "I think you're the only one who actually cares about the camera angles. Everyone is here because they think you're interesting, that you have a lot of knowledge to share." Thank you. Appreciate that. Roger Sigmund says, "I can't smoke cannabis anymore. I'm hypersensitive to its effects." Well, I agree. I mean, I definitely, somebody else says 180-degree shutter. "I love your camera angles. You're a filmmaker like I am. So yes, they're cool." Well, you guys are just going all over the place, and I don't want to, keep rambling around. But it's fun to I'm kind of more loose than usual. What the hell? And we got 3,700 people watching. That's pretty incredible. Thank you guys for finding your way back here. We still managed to get the show off the ground, and it still looks pretty cool. I've got there's some composition here, because these angles, if I can get my finger to do that, they're kind of aiming in on my head. As soon as I got into this room, even though it is like ridiculously cramped and small little space, I'm like, you know what? This is going to look awesome on camera with my blue lights. I brought 2 color casters with me. They're by Fight Electric. FEIT Electric makes those. They're cheap. So if you lose one, it's not a big deal. If one of them breaks, it's not a big deal. You just plug them in and you turn on the button, and then you can go between blue and red and purple and yellow, and you get a few different rainbow colors to choose from. The blue is very saturated and it makes the room look awesome. So I'm pretty happy with the way this looks. The blue room, yeah. I think you'd appreciate Eric Johnson's guitar work, David. I've heard of him. Oh my gosh. ABC just reported gunshots at a golf course at 45 was at. Also, you're doing great. The blue light is transcendent. No transma, LMAO. Well, we had transma before. If you got to watch to the beginning, I guess you got to go back and endure this whole rambling monologue that I'm going through. But anyway, we're just hanging out. You guys got the backstage pass this week. This is like not the normal David show. Maybe I'll tape one of those in the cabin. This is just the social hour. My nose is too small. I certainly don't think that's true. It's like, let's just see if we can do something with this. But anyway. Tarotina, how much is that in US dollars? It's $4. Okay. So anybody that says, oh my God, David's getting $5,000. No, it's 5,000 Argentinian pesos. Okay. So just relax. We always have somebody who freaks out about that. That's okay. We love Tarotina, and I'm glad that she's so supportive. So anyway, it's interesting that if you go back to what I was saying about the remote viewing stuff, I look at remote viewing as a type of music similar to Steve Vai. He plays knapsack with all of his left hand. It's absolutely incredible. He's muting the strings. He's doing basically like an amazing guitar solo the whole time, and it's all done with hammer-ons and pull-offs. And like I said, he's a big fan of mine, as I heard. What do you use in your hair? It looks magnificent. Well, honestly, my ex-wife Elizabeth taught me this trick. I had been fighting my hair being curly my whole life. I didn't like the waviness, or I didn't think I did. And so for years and years, I would comb it and then comb it with a blow dryer and straighten it out just with heat. Or I'd just keep it short enough that the wave wasn't really a big deal. Well, it turns out that if you have that kind of wavy tendency in your hair, that all you really have to do is just wash it, use a good conditioner. Certain types of conditioner work better than others. If it's a straightening conditioner, it's not going to work. You got to get the right kind of shampoo. You got to experiment with that a little bit. But I don't use curl shampoo or anything weird. All I do is just wash my hair. And then the real key is you don't comb it. You comb it a little bit with your fingers. You just kind of run your fingers through it when it's wet. But you gotta let it get wet, and then you crunch it up with your hands like this. You kind of pull it away from your head. You see, I can make it look get more volume that way, and then it starts to look really freaking crazy. More rock and roll than ever, right? That's actually a little bit too much. Oop, there we go. Anyway, well, all you have to do is like let it be wet and crunch it up with your hands and run your fingers through it a little bit. And then as it's drying, when it's pretty close to being dry, if it doesn't quite look right, you get your hands wet again. You hit it a couple more times, and you kind of like fold your fingers through it, and you crunch at it like this, crunch it up. Next thing you know, that's all you got. All you have to do is that, and then you got this amazing curly look. And so it's kind of like a secret weapon I had that I didn't realize I had. Tiffany, David, I've been watching you for over a decade. You are at your best right now because you're being authentic. You're better doing this solo. I believe you are Edgar Casey's soul flame. Thank you. I have some mashed potatoes on me, says Trina Frederick. Your nose is fine. I appreciate you. Yeah, thank you for your first super chat. $50 donation. That's very impressive. Sally Ritchie Color says, my hair is just like yours, and I do the same thing. Yeah, so nothing flesh and blood is sexy. It's a zombie. I don't know. Obviously, that's not about me. Princess of Alderaan has been here many times. But anyway, thank you guys for your kind donations. Yes, the hair is curly. It's a good trick. It's like a secret weapon that I have. And I'm happy to be here with you guys because you know what? You deserve it. You deserve to hang out with David on Sunday and have a fun conversation. There's no pressure on me now. I got no slides. There's no Ezra stuff I'm going to have to go through. But, you know, there's a lot of things that have kind of coalesced into what's happening in my life now. So let's go back to talking about remote viewing. Art Bell. Yeah, my neck is really sore, man. These pillows in these hotels, and whew, it's been intense. I love the cabin where I stay up in the mountains here, but then when I came down into the town, I'm staying in this fancy hotel. I've got a tiny ass little room. It's cold as hell. And I can't do air conditioning. I don't know. My system doesn't like air conditioning at all. My throat closes up. I get sinus problems. I cannot have air conditioning on. So what did I do? I turned it off. But then you find out, oh, you know, if you're up on a high floor, which is just what they gave me, you know, then you've got this problem, which is, oh, the heat rises from all the rooms that people aren't staying in, because this hotel is much bigger than they don't have full occupancy. I can tell that much. So I got the window open and I'm trying to stay cool because it's actually too hot. And so I had to like not wear my base layers. Normally out here, you got the base layers on. I don't have any of them on right now, but I use merino wool. And out in the cabin, man, it's like 40 degrees at night or colder. You got to have the base layer on. You sleep with a lot of blankets. So my neck's a little bit stiff, but no big deal. I'm happy to be on the air, and we're doing a great show for you guys. So I'm not high. That's not true. I haven't actually used any medication since Memorial Day, which would have been May 31st. And I actually don't miss it. That's the irony of it. I really didn't know what to expect, but I'll tell you what, when you come out into nature like this and you see these mountains and you see this water and you're in front of a lake and then the sunlight hits the water and every single ripple of sunlight on the surface of the lake, you can individually look at each one, or you can look at them as a matrix. You can kind of defocus your eyes and watch the pattern of the water, watch the pattern of the sun. I mean, to me, that is music. Being in front of a view like that is just as gorgeous as listening to Steve Vai play Knapsack and do this incredible guitar solo with one freaking hand. He's never touching the strings with his right hand at all. And it's an incredible, incredible piece of music. You got to see it if you're into that stuff. Anything, if you like fusion or progressive rock or art rock or whatever the hell people call it, go check out Steve Vai. I mean, I've never outed him as a fan before, but he is a fan of mine. I'd love to meet him, especially after watching that stuff. He is just dazzling. So I get a very big enjoyment out of listening to that music. Phil Collins had a jazz project called Brand X that, for whatever reason, he did it right before he came out with his first solo album, which was called Face Value. And Face Value, of course, has the classic song, I Can Feel It Coming in the Air Tonight. And of course, there's this whole, it's a very angry song. It's a divorce song. And he admitted that it was a song that he wrote after walking in on his wife cheating on him with another guy. And so there's a big drum break in that song. And this is kind of sad to admit, but it's a stylized series of shotgun blasts done with drums, because it's two hits on the toms and then a bass drum hit. So boom. And that's actually the cocking of a shotgun. Chick boom. And then the bass drum is when you're firing. Boom, boom, boom. So he's firing, what would that be? It's like 4 or 5 shots with a shotgun. So it's a very intense song. And then once you get that big drum break, there's this really intense kind of jazz fusion inspired riff that goes on. Dum chicka bum bum ba da 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 dum bum 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 ba da 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 dum dum bum 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 bum. So that right there is a lot more complex than music normally gets, because it's really like a 4-measure phrase. It's a 4-measure riff that has a lot of space in it, and there's all these hits of like where the guitar and the bass and the drums are all kind of playing the same notes at the same time, and it's very syncopated. It's off rhythm, so you're not playing a regular drum beat. I mean, you can sometimes hear the drum beat carry over, but the point is that's called stop time. And so he was doing a project called Brand X, and they started releasing albums, I think, in 1977, and Face Value, I think, was in 1980. And I met his ex-wife, who was the source of these, these songs that were so brilliant, including I Don't Care Anymore. That's another one that he did that was very minimalistic. It was on his second album. I'm a big Phil Collins fan. I admit it. I watched MTV when it first came out in 1981. And In the Air Tonight was one of the first, I don't know, like 5 or 6 videos that was on there. There was the Buggles, Video Killed the Radio Star. I think they played that one first. There was a really funny video. If anybody out there remember that, anybody old enough to have watched MTV when they first started. But Tina Marie says she donated $50. I have a free week of timeshare you can use, more spacious room and living room, dining room, and kitchen. Where do you want to go? Well, thank you, Tina. That's a great offer. I appreciate it. So anyway, yeah, so a lot of people watched MTV, absolutely. So what was it that was on there? One of the songs that I actually play on the guitar all the time was by the Pretenders, "Brass in Pocket," and I just killed that song, and I'm gonna have to get their legal permission to perform it. I hope they'll grant it to me because it's up to them, and if not, I could get my whole channel taken down. But I've got this great thing that I do on the guitar where I've got, you can see I got nails on this side. That's because I'm playing fingerstyle, and then this side I don't. Okay, so you're plucking the strings with this side. So I've got this thing that I do where I play brass in pocket, and I'm keeping steady quarter notes with my thumb, bum 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 bum, and then at the same time I got the chord melody going on with my fingers, da 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 bum bum da 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 da, and so then I sing over that. So I've been practicing this stuff for years, and I've never really had the time or the patience to get into it. But when I watch Steve Vai's knapsack video, it's like, I think the reason why I keep getting hurt is that I've always got my elbow and my shoulder up too high because I got to rest it on the guitar this way. So I might actually switch now to putting the guitar between my legs instead of having an acoustic guitar support on my right leg. But anyway, the Pretenders' "Brass in Pocket" was another song that was on MTV at the very beginning. And I was reading the comments on the video, and people are like hating on her for the kind of cheesy acting, and the band is acting. She's like a waitress in this restaurant, and her band, who's all a bunch of guys, comes in. They all have girlfriends, and the guys are starting to get interested in her, and the girlfriends get really mad, and the guys end up leaving and walking out on her before they even got any food. And that's kind of like the story of the thing. And she's really sad. So the song is about how she wants to lure in a man, and she's got all these different tricks that she's using in her arsenal to get people to like her. And that was one of the songs that I imprinted on because it was one of the very first songs on MTV, "In the Air Tonight." And Phil Collins had the best video. You see, he already had been wealthy because he'd been in the band Genesis. And now you read these websites on progressive rock, and Genesis is considered like the best progressive rock band there was. And you have Peter Gabriel, who was the singer, and Foxtrot is probably the most accessible and best Genesis album of old Genesis. It's got "Watcher of the Skies." That's probably one of the premier songs on that album. And it's just like, you got to be into music that changes a lot. It's not just like it stays in one groove. It keeps, there's stop time arrangements, right? Where the band all plays the same notes with the drums. And because I was really into drums growing up, I was very into Led Zeppelin. I loved listening to John Bonham. I loved the Moby Dick song where he goes into an extended drum solo, all that kind of stuff. And then this incredible stuff that he's doing where he's keeping the hi-hat going with his left foot. So he's got that going with his foot the whole time. And he's all this kind of crazy stuff. And I remember when I first learned how to do triplets on the drums, where you play, one hand with the left, one hand with the right, and then you hit the bass drum. And then you start to speed that up. That's a big part of the John Bonham thing. He'd get it sounding really fast, and then in the movie, of course, "Song Remains the Same." I'm a huge Led Zeppelin fan. It's probably my favorite band of all. In the "Song Remains the Same," they compare that to a racing car. Right? You do that on the drums, and you get that going. You really feel powerful when you can get the triplets going fast, and you start to develop good technique, and you start to be able to get it to be smooth. It's like, oh man, this is freaking great. It was very empowering for me as a kid to get to the point where I could play fast and I could get interesting things happening. And so Zeppelin was definitely the most proficient band in the 1970s, I would say. There really was nobody else in their league. Jimmy Page was pretty much the best guitar player. And then John Bonham was pretty much the best drummer. And then you got Robert Plant, who's the best singer. No offense to Steven Tyler. I mean, Aerosmith comes in almost as high on my list as Zeppelin. And there's four Aerosmith albums in the 1970s that really, really nail it and are almost as iconic as the Zeppelin albums. And so getting to meet Steven and hang out with him, he came to my 40th birthday party. I've hung out with him in person a bunch of times. I've had long conversations with him. He's a huge fan. He actually had my recordings on his Jeep in Hawaii. He would just play source field investigations over and over again. I love Mike and the Mechanics' song Silent Running is so otherworldly about ET contact. Yeah, Mike and the Mechanics was one of the projects of Mike Rutherford, who was the bass player in Genesis. So if you get into this progressive rock stuff, they say Genesis is the best band. And, there's another band in the 1970s that's very, very strange. It's almost like schizophrenic rock. Gentle Giant. I don't know if any of you guys have ever heard of Gentle Giant, but it's not as good as Genesis. It's certainly not as good as Zeppelin. The vocals are not as strong, but Gentle Giant is also just incredibly intricate. Aerosmith is my all-time favorite, says Amber Winters. I'm jealous you got to meet Steven. That's one of my dreams. Is this building up to you telling us you're going to play guitar when you get home? Well, yeah, I do hope to eventually. But again, I looked this stuff up online, and if I just were to belt out, sorry to bump the screen. This is like a regular show, man. If I touch this screen, it's going to wiggle. If I just belted out with a song and I didn't have permission to do it legally, I could lose my whole channel. So you can't just play music. You got to actually get permission. You got to write people. You got to pay for it. And I'm going to be happy to do that. The Pretenders Brass in Pocket is one of the ones. You've Got a Friend, which was Carole King. And, that's another one that I do that I really love. Just the Way You Are by Billy Joel. I love you just the way you da-na-na-na. I got that whole thing on guitar. It's incredibly complex, tons of chords. I've got that song that I've played a whole bunch. Elton John is another one. I hope he'll give me permission to do his stuff. Your Song. You can tell everybody this is your song. May be quite simple, but now that it's done, I hope you don't mind. I hope you don't mind that I put down in words. Right, I got that. All the crazy stuff on the guitar that you have to play to make that a beautiful acoustic arrangement. There's a couple other Elton John songs I've worked on as well, but Your Song is pretty much at the level of Yesterday by the Beatles to me in terms of its amazement level. Yesterday, of course, really changed the game of music because you have the Beatles were cranking out essentially bubblegum pop, and all of a sudden, you got George Martin, who was the fifth Beatle, and he was this guy who was all into classical, and he started to train Paul McCartney, who really was sort of in second place to John Lennon up until then in terms of his musicianship, in terms of his knowledge. But Paul started really learning classical music theory from George Martin. And when you hear Yesterday, people say I have a good voice, so beautiful, thank you. Yeah, I mean, I've practiced it for years. You got to remember, I was in the studio boot camp with Larry Sire, who recorded with Grammy-winning artists, Garth Brooks, George Strait, Dixie Chicks, Asleep at the Wheel, Dolly Parton, Willie Nelson. I was not allowed to be off pitch at all. In fact, if something comes out of my mouth and it's off pitch, I immediately know because he would just stop the music and I have to restart. But the biggest regret that I had, a couple different regrets about the album, Wander Awakening, it's still available on divinecosmos.com. I mean, we hardly ever sell any of it anymore. But I didn't really go for the rock and roll sound. There's a very, very fine art to getting your voice to sound like it's rock and roll, which is the grittiness, the raspiness. And that's unfortunately what happened to Steven Tyler. I feel really bad for him because he blew out his larynx. He cracked his larynx and he can't sing anymore. So he's done. I mean, he can't perform music ever again. And I remember when I was seeing Steven at Las Vegas backstage with Elizabeth, my ex-wife, he was having real trouble with his voice back then. It was really scary. And he was, having a hard time going on stage. I said, Steven, this is a true, I hope he doesn't get mad at me. Steven, please don't get mad at me. Please don't get mad at me. I'm about to say something. I said, Stephen, what's your secret? What's your secret to? I can't tell you exactly what he said, but he said that if you go down on a woman before you're going to perform rock and roll, that it tunes up your voice to be able to get those gritty notes to sound better. It kind of made sense, like there's probably stem cells and healing agents in there so that the act of childbearing, child production is going to go more smoothly and will create healing. So sure enough, if you and he's got many songs in the 1970s that talked about this, and the fact that he liked to go down on women. So apparently that's a great technique that will really help heal your voice from this. But you know, um, he was having a rough time. His voice was in really bad. What the heck, LOL. Yeah, it's true. He told me that, and he had the big childish grin on his face when he told me that story about, it'll make your voice last a lot longer. It's like, oh, okay, well, hopefully in the future I can be in a loving relationship and that'll be part of the magic trick that I'll use to make sure that my voice doesn't die on me before and after. Ruth Bass says, I love the ramblings. Everything happens for a reason. I think you needed a timeout. I definitely did. But yeah, so this is what do you do when Steven Tyler tells you, this is the magic secret to not losing your voice when you do rock and roll? Well, okay, the master has spoken, and that's an incentive to want to perform this very loving act. If you want to call it that. Okay, woo! It got a little crazy in here, didn't it? I'm driving. I had to pull over. I'm laughing so much. We need Neil deGrasse Tyson to explain that one in depth. Yeah, maybe we get a video. We'll get a video demonstration of the techniques involved and how this exactly works. But it did kind of make sense, like the body is going to want to make sure this works out for you. And so there's going to be healing agents in there. Trotina says, I love to hear these anecdotes. Tell us about the dreams you had this week. Are you sure he wasn't trolling you? No, he was serious. I mean, I was expecting to hear something like, tea and lemon, which was the typical thing. And he just gave me a one-word answer and he grinned so much. I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, I guess that might work. When will you begin engaging with the actual substance of the information? Eva donated $49. Well, I got $49.99 reasons now to keep going into the content. So I love to talk about music. I don't usually get to do that. So please bear with me. But again, I look at there's a relationship between performing music, seeing nature, and doing psychic readings. I consider you can learn how to play piano, you can learn how to play guitar, you can learn how to sing, you can take music lessons, you can take voice lessons, you can get better at what you're doing. I certainly got better from doing the album with Larry. I've certainly spent years and years learning how to play guitar and getting good at it. But after I started to write the Michael prophecies, I had to stop playing guitar because I only had enough energy in my hands to be able to actually do typing, because I was typing all day, every day to write these Michael books. So again, just to tag off the thing about Phil Collins, the first stuff on MTV, one of the first videos was In the Air Tonight, but he had this jazz fusion band called Brand X for 3 years before that. And this is similar to things like Yellow Jackets or Mahavishnu Orchestra, but it was a more rock and roll oriented jazz fusion product. So it still has jazzy chords. The drums are incredible. Phil is playing drums on a lot of the songs, and I had no idea. When I found out this was Phil Collins' band, and up until then I'd only heard him on MTV, and I'm like, yeah, he's got some of these sappy songs, man. I don't know. But then I heard Brand X, and I was like, oh my God. So my favorite album by Brand X is Product. And that's where Phil Collins actually comes out and sings lead vocals on 2 songs, Don't Make Waves and Soho. And in both of those songs, well, there's also another song, which would be Dance of the Illegal Aliens, where he does kind of like a phonetic thing. And they're just jamming on that. And he's like basically duplicating what the bass is playing. That's incredible too. So there's 3 vocal songs on the album, but 2 of them where he actually sings lyrics. And I don't honestly know why it didn't get more popular, but I did get to meet Percy Jones and the lead guitar. Percy Jones is a bass player who plays this fretless. It sounds like a cow or like an animal a lot of the time. He's doing all this funny stuff because you can slide your fingers. You got to do this special chord shape where you're doing an octave, and you slide the octave up and down on the neck, and you get these really interesting sounds. So for me, it was better than Led Zeppelin. It was better than anything else out there. Brand X became my favorite music. I found this tape in my mom's catalog when I was like 15 years old. I had just started to use cannabis. Yes, I quit when I was 19, started when I was 15. And as soon as I listened to this stuff, I was like, oh my God, this is just incredible. Do you think David Bowie was a human ET like 2001 David Bowman? I don't know. I think he was a normal guy, but he was a very talented musician. And David Bowie has some really great songs too. I mean, Fame is probably my favorite David Bowie song because he really just went for this greasy funk groove. Fame, fame. It's like, ooh, man. And it just that groove just freaking crushes it, man. It's just like, don't. Wow. So I learned bass. I play bass too. I'm actually kind of a newbie on bass, but I can navigate my way around. There's a whole technique where you put your thumb on the pickup, and then you use your two fingers like this, and so you got to kind of always have your hand in this position and get those fingers going fast. I can do pretty good bass lines now. So I've got this looping pedal, and I want to be able to play drums and bass and guitar and sing over it and do all that stuff. But if you try to do anybody's songs, you got to get permission. That's important. I can't just bust it out or I'd lose my whole channel. So I'm going to be working on that. I want to get back into the music. But again, you can learn this stuff. So Phil Collins was my inspiration, Brand X. They had a bunch of albums that are quite amazing. There's Masks is one that didn't have Phil on drums, and you can really tell the difference. But Unorthodox Behavior was their original one. There's a guy looking through some blinds. Product, and then there's another one after that with a woman wearing shoes, and there's an alligator next to her, and you just see her legs in these high-heeled shoes, and it's called Do They Hurt? And that one is a little more depressing. So for me, and then there's also what's the other one? Anyway, there's several Brand X albums, but the ones that Phil Collins is on where he's playing are the best. And for me, Product was the one that really just hit it. Don't Make Waves and Soho, 2 songs on that album. I couldn't understand why they didn't get popular, and I talked to him about that. In fact, when I met Phil Collins' wife, and I said, how much I love Brand X, she's like, well, you were probably the only one. So you could tell that there was some tension there, because if your band doesn't sell enough albums, then, you're not going to be able to keep going. You're going to lose your record contract. You don't get to tour, and nobody gets to hear your stuff. So it was pretty amazing that Phil had been in this very popular band, Genesis, and then Peter Gabriel left right in the middle of while they were recording Lamb Lies Down on Broadway. They did a tour on the album. The album came out late. Nobody had even heard the album yet, and they were already touring and playing the music. And there's funny stories about how Gabriel was wearing costumes, and he could barely sing in the costumes. And then Lamb Lies Down on Broadway is also like a really scary, depressing album, because Peter Gabriel's son was dying, and they didn't know if he was going to live. He was a little boy, just 4 feet tall, not even. So he was having a really hard time with his life, and he was going through stress, and that stress really shows up in the album. He's got songs about being emasculated, having his member cut off. He's got songs about slipper men, these guys that have lips sliding across their face, and then that showed up in the video Sledgehammer, which was a really groundbreaking video. So somehow Genesis broke up, and then Phil Collins did a lot better without Genesis, and then he was singing in Genesis as well, and they did a lot better, commercially speaking, starting with the album that has all the Jigsaw, the Perfection Game pieces popped out, has the song Mama on it. Mama is a very intense song. Abacab is another one I love by Genesis. It's just so amazing. And that was a video that they came out with. I'm like, wow, just amazing stuff. And then Peter Gabriel, of course, comes out with these solo albums that also did better than he did in Genesis. The Rhythm of the Heat is one of the songs that Peter Gabriel came out with that I just absolutely love. Da-dum, ba-dum, ba-dum, bum, bum, doo, 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 doo. And it's like he had Phil Collins in there on the drums, and he said, don't play any cymbals at all. You can only play the tom-toms. I don't want any cymbals, tom-toms and snare. And that became a signature sound that then Phil Collins borrowed that idea from Peter Gabriel and used it on In the Air Tonight, where again, it's like, and then the drums just are, there's a little bit of hi-hat work, but very little. And then, of course, Peter Gabriel, I think, really reached the apex of his craft on his album So, which has In Your Eyes, of course, really incredible song, Sledgehammer, which kind of got overplayed, and the big, what's that big song, Big Time or something like that? That was another one. But anyway, So was an incredible album. So I've gotten way off track, but I never get to talk about music as much as I want to. There you go. Russell Brand also uses the title Brand X. I didn't know that. Love that music. Reminds me so much of the 80s, fun times. Salisbury Hill. Yeah, that's another song that I learned for a while. It's got this very interesting there's like an A chord on that song that goes into like A sus2, A sus4. You got to do a bar on the A, and you got to get your fingers in there below that. Dum 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 dum. It's all this A stuff, and it's tricky. It's very, very hard to play that song properly on the acoustic guitar. But I worked on that. I've been working on the guitar since 2010. But again, once I started microprocessors, I had to ease off of it. So again, remote viewing to me is like another form of music. It's got the same type of energy where you're learning a craft, and just like learning to play an instrument, in the beginning, it's not very good. You can't do very much. Guitar is very hard. Your fingers have to be exactly in the right positions. You can't, you got to like learn how to keep your hand in a resting position like this, especially if you're playing like solo type of stuff, and you got to learn how to not have it be tight and tense. You want to always keep your thumb on the back of the neck. There's very specific hand positions that you have to adhere to play guitar well. But if you can do it, if you can get the guitar going, it's a wonderful thing. And so many people played guitar that I never thought I would do it. And when my guides told me in my dreams they wanted me to play guitar, I'm like, oh my God, you guys. Every dork in college has got a guitar on his back and thinks he's going to get chicks, quote unquote, if he's a strumming son of a bitch. Oh, Dave, check out Ezra. Shots were fired at 45 again. All right, well, let's do that while I'm on the air with you guys. Let's see what's going on. Hopefully I'm still on the air, and yeah, I am. Okay, so let's just check this out. Is this true? Okay, there was. Oh my God. All right. Let's read what it says. It says right here, is there another attempt on 45 right before November? Shots were fired at International Golf Club in West Palm Beach while he was golfing there. A machine gun was found hidden in the bushes, an AK. The suspect fled, was later arrested. He was staying at the club at the time and is safe. These attempts are becoming alarmingly blatant. It's time to start identifying key figures behind these orders. My God. Whew. Officials have confirmed that the shots fired today were an assassination attempt. Reports indicate Secret Service also engaged in a gunfire exchange. They missed again. Wow. Okay, well, there you have it. David, you should know Tavistock music is mind control. Well, see, this is the thing. All right, let's talk about this. Oh my God, satanic rock music. You can't listen to any of this stuff because it's satanic, it's satanic, it's satanic. I didn't have a choice. I grew up in a family where I was meeting the rock musicians with my father backstage. My father was taking me to rock concerts of everybody you can imagine, the whole tasting palette. We met Aerosmith. We met the Grateful Dead. Yeah, I mean, I actually met Jerry Garcia. I met all the Grateful Dead members. I was very young. I mean, I met the B-52s before they even got famous. You remember if you're a child of the 80s like I was, 70s and 80s, then the first B-52s album had Rock Lobster, Down, Down, Rock Lobster. That was a hilarious song, and it didn't really get that popular. And then they obviously had the whole shack shimmies when everybody's stinging and around and around and around and around. So that was I got housekeeping right outside my door. Housekeeping, housekeeping drives me freaking crazy. I do not want housekeeping. She's right outside the door. She's listening now. Yeah, so I had this traumatic event, you guys, where I got my stuff. I had 2 laptops like I do right now, and I got identity theft. This was at the Bay Area International UFO Expo. I was speaking in California at San Francisco area at a UFO conference. Housekeeping came into my room. I had 2 laptops there, and I ended up having a battle with Sprint that lasted for 3 or 4 years, where they got a cell phone in my name, and then they didn't pay for it, and I was disputing a $400 charge, and it was a big lesson in legal battles. I had to fill out all this paperwork and get it notarized. I was able to prove that I had had my identity stolen, but they didn't care. And finally, after 4 years or something, I said, "Look, Sprint, okay, I'll just pay you guys. I'll pay the $400. I don't care." And then somebody said, "Oh, stop, David. You're gorgeous. Something is up. Everybody's moving. Everybody's grooving, baby." You don't know most of your viewers, says Thomas Warren, but I know for speaking for myself and my wife, we look so forward to seeing you every Sunday, keeping us apprised of what's going on. Dude, you're a racist. How did I get to be a racist? Oh, because of housekeeping? Well, no, that is what you hear. I've been in so many places where it sounds something like that. And so that's a trigger for me. So you got to remember, like, okay, put your little do not disturb sign on the door. And, it's not racist. I mean, the bottom line is somebody came into my room and they ripped me off and they took my identity and took me 4 years of fighting. And I offered Sprint the pay. I said, yeah, we'll forgive you now that you're willing to pay for it. So 4 years of fighting over $400, it was so ridiculous. The amount of time I spent fighting that charge was way more than $400 worth of time and energy, to say the least. So anyway, when I imitate housekeeping, that's just because that's what it actually sounds like most of the places you go. So I'm not intending to disrespect anyone. Everybody's got something to complain about, don't they? I like to do funny voices and imitations and impersonations, and that's you're always running the risk that somebody's going to say, "Oh my God, you're making fun of so and so or something." Whatever. That is what it sounds like. So anyway, I'm glad that you guys are here, and I'm glad that Love Shack, that's what the song was called. Now I remember. Time management. That's right. I'm not racist. I'm just a good imitator. Yes. I love Shack. So yeah, when I met B-52s, it was amazing. We brought them little gifts. My brother and I had handmade gifts that we gave them. And this was back when they had Rock Lobster before Love Shack made such a huge hit for them. And they were wonderful to us. Everybody was so cool. I met Thomas Dolby when he was in the middle of doing She Blinded Me with Science, and he was like really tripped out. He wasn't handling fame all that well. He was kind of freaked out being backstage. But again, I learned the trick, which is don't act like you're all that excited. Don't act like you can't do this with your eyes and you can't do the eyebrow stuff. And you don't want to do that face because then they'll just turn around and walk away. They won't even talk to you. You're done. So you got to just be like, "Hey man, what's going on?" And be totally, see, your nose is fine. Somebody said, "Don't remind me." Okay. Anyway, you got to be really cool when you meet famous people. So it turns out that skill of being really cool around famous people and not getting too excited is a very important part of the music of remote viewing. So let's get back onto our main topic here, because I've done a lot of music stuff. I got to meet all these musicians, and you learn not to get excited. And that's the same thing you have to do if you want to keep this remote viewing going. If you get excited, if you listen to what your channel is saying, if you analyze it, you're going to fail. You're not going to be able to do it properly. So it's important to tune out all distractions. And again, you got to go into a deep state of meditation. Richard Collins, first donation ever. And I'm not going to say that, Now that's upsetting. K and K rock, K and K, whatever he says there. Anyway, there is no sex going on with housekeeping. Okay, that's not going to happen. In fact, the honey trap risk is so high, and look at what just happened here. I mean, I'm still kind of in a state of shock of what I just read. Once again, the second time in a row that it's like a Saturday or a Sunday, and this time I'm actually on the air, and they tried to apparently murder him while I'm on the air. It's upsetting. You know, the stakes are real. I didn't even know if I would live coming out on this vacation or not. But I did it anyway because I just love the music of these mountains. To me, it's like music. It's this. There's a soul resonance that I get of being out here and being around this stuff and the beauty and the natural environment. I just can't get enough of it. So let's talk about remote viewing some more. You can learn how to do it just like you're playing an instrument. And again, going backstage and meeting rock stars became a very valuable practice for me in terms of like learning how to properly get this channeling to work. You don't want to be emotionally reactive to your content. Not having an emotional reaction is probably one of the most important things. You don't want to analyze, you don't want to be emotional, you don't want to listen to it. So then Joe Mason comes in and he's got this technique called the dream voice. And he told me when you first wake up in the morning, this was in 1996, November, he told me this. When you first wake up in the morning and you can remember your dreams, listen to the background chatter in your mind. Just listen to whatever your mind is saying. And there's a difference between what you think with your mind and the thoughts that naturally appear. And you can learn to tell the difference. When you're doing this technique properly, you're going to just get stuff that shows up without any conscious thought. It just surfaces in your mind and you grab it and you document it. And that's the whole trick, is how do you document it? You can either write it down or you can dictate it. So I started to dictate it into a tape recorder. And Joe Mason's technique specifically focused on listening to voice sounds. You'll be listening to a 360-degree halo around you. And you might get a voice over here. You might get a voice over here. You might hear something talking behind you. And it'll sound like there's a TV on in the other room. It'll sound like there's background noise, background chatter. And you just document whatever it says, even if it's very, very weird. In fact, the weirder it is, the more offbeat it is, the more likely it is that it's something actually good. And the encryption is important. It gets past your conscious mind. It's an encrypted metaphorical phrase. It uses symbolic dream language to talk. So you're going to get unusual data that is not typical of what you would expect. You're going to get words that sound strange, sentences that sound strange, a sentence structure is strange. And the whole point is, if you're doing the technique properly, you listen to exactly what you hear. You don't analyze it. You don't have any emotional reaction. You just write it down, or you dictate into a tape recorder. And so I started out by doing it in writing. And even from the very first day, it was quite amazing. I had prophecies coming in, things that became true. There was clearly a source of intelligence there. This started on November 10th, 1996. And within a relatively short time, the source itself told me to switch from writing to recording my voice. And it's a little bit harder to do it with your voice than your hand, because if you're doing it with your hand, you're not hearing it being spoken. You just have to write it down. But ultimately, you have to learn how to not listen to your voice. If that sounds like it makes sense, it does actually. It's a trick, which is like you tune out the sound of your own voice. You got to stay in a very slow trance state. A lot of times the words would come through in bursts of 1 to 3 at an incredibly slow plodding pace. You just kind of let it happen. Listen and don't pay any attention to it. As soon as you speak it, don't listen to it. Don't think about the words that are coming. Don't think about the words that already happened. You just stay in the now. Sequoia EWJ donated $50 Australian. Thank you very much. Yes, they did shoot at 45 again. Apparently he was not hurt. Wendy D says you can definitely tell the difference in your own thoughts. Tarotina says the voices are different too. It's very random, but they are lovely voices. G Wolf says, I fell asleep with the live stream on. I got to hang out with David in my dream just now. LOL. Well, thank you. I'm glad that we got to hang out. These are crazy times. People, please pray. Oh, Steve Bosco, helpful advice. If Taco Bell upsets your stomach, skip the middleman and throw it right into the toilet. Yeah, I mean, the big problem I had here is that it's just so freaking expensive. I had like one slab of steak, one little pile of asparagus on 2 bald plates, no garnish. The bread, as I said, costs $18. The mashed potatoes cost $15. And like, screw the mashed potatoes. I don't even want to eat potato. I'm not supposed to. So the breakfast buffet was pretty good, but they had this stoned French music, as I said. She's all pitchy. Oh, like these in between notes that you're not supposed to hit if you want to stay on pitch. In fact, the music industry won't let you submit a recording where you're pitchy. You have to be on pitch. Anyway, I don't want to get locked off in the music again. So I can talk too much about music. Anyway, we still got 3,500 people watching. We're an hour and a half in. You guys are hanging out with me. We're having fun. So let's talk about what's really going on here, because it all started with these readings in the 1990s. And I figured out that, okay, I can speak it out loud. I don't have to do the handwriting anymore. And then I record the tapes, and then I would transcribe the tapes, but I started to get backed up. So I would transcribe tapes that I might have dictated 2 weeks ago. Maybe I dictated them a month ago. They're not fresh. They're old recordings that I'm now dictating maybe in the beginning of September, but then I'm not even transcribing them until the beginning of October, let's say. Something like that. So what would happen was that as I started to transcribe these tapes, they were describing the present right before I sat down. So I think it was Star Wars Episode 1. I saw that movie, and then I came back, and I was transcribing tapes from like 2 or 3 weeks ago, and it was describing all the stuff that was in the movie. One of the examples I've used many times is there was a little toy called a Tamagotchi, a little orange thing that kids would hold in their hand, and they'd feed this little bird. And if you don't remember to feed the bird dies. Well, there was a little girl in a convenience shop called Stewart's. We had those in upstate New York. And she had this little Tamagotchi toy, and then I went right back. I had just seen that. She's feeding her little silly bird, digital bird. I go right back home, started transcribing, and here's this Tamagotchi thing. Same exact little device, that color. It started to really freak me out, you guys. I was really captivated by this. It kept happening over and over again the same way. It was really shocking. Another example was that I went to Woodstock because Woodstock wasn't that far from me. And I met a guy there who started to talk to me about Joseph Campbell. And he said that Joseph Campbell reveals that you have different ways of accessing the Creator through religion or spirituality. And he likened them to software. In other words, you don't have to buy into one religion per se. I mean, I do believe that there is a Christ consciousness and that Jesus was the embodiment of the Logos. So I guess you could kind of say I'm Christian. Michael Larson, 1999, thank you for what you do. VI Tech, $20. Thank you. Both you guys, thank you for the donations. That's incredible. So yeah, I definitely have high respect for Jesus. I do believe he is the Logos, the manifested Creator in human form. But I don't want to get locked up in dogma, and I don't want to say that you have to be Christian or else you're going to go to hell or whatever. That's, to me, very uninformed viewpoint. But I totally acknowledge the divinity of Christ. Absolutely. I mean, the law of one has it all over the place. So this basis of belief that Christianity gave us is essentially the building blocks of what you need to know to be able to graduate, to go into this next level of ascension that we're all happening to go through on Earth right now. And, 45 is on the front line, and now we just had another shooting incident. I'm on the front line. Thankfully, that didn't happen to me. But all this stuff that I'm doing now started in the 1996 region when I got these readings coming in, and I'm transcribing the tapes. And so I had this guy in Woodstock, and he told me the Joseph Campbell thing. And he said, religion is like a different type of software. And then I got home, and the very first thing that happened when I hit play on the tape and I'm transcribing it, it said, yeah, gunshots were heard on the golf course where he was playing just now. Peace Able donated. We thank you. We know that. I did just mention that. It's shocking. But I'm not going to go into fear and reactivity. Let's just be grateful that he's okay. I mean, the fact that this thing just happened again might spike the timeline. I mean, it could actually be an opportunity crisis, where in fact something bad happens and then it turns into something that leads to what we've all been expecting. So I got home from him telling me that it's like a different type of software, different spiritualities, like different software. And then I start transcribing, and the first thing that my source said is, we are installing new software. That was mind blowing. I had prophecies about Mother Teresa, that she was going to have some health problem. About 5 or 6 days later, she had a heart attack. That's in my book. So I started to write all this stuff down, and then they pretty quickly told me that I needed to transcribe all of it into the computer. They made some I just used they in terms of whatever the source was. Later on, there, I just knocked my screen again. Later on, it identified as Archangel Michael, but that didn't happen until 1999. So I typically would just use the very generic term they to describe this, because I had at least two beings talking. I had Grandfather and Lucia. They identified themselves with those names. Grandfather turned out to be Archangel Michael. Lucia turned out to be Saint Lucia, the patron saint of children. And, she refused to go into slavery of the most horrific and perverted sort when she was still underage. And they couldn't cut her, they couldn't burn her, they couldn't move her body. But then they stabbed her in the neck and she died, but she was impervious to being moved. She was impervious to burning. And that's how she got sainted, is that this is a very strange situation. So I didn't even really look her up or know any of that stuff until I got to be, doing this work in the 2 years ago. So anyway, I was really, really into UFOs, and I'd been into UFOs well before this whole channeling thing started in the 1996 area. I'd gotten into UFOs beginning in, I guess, where it really got started was in 1993, after I'd gotten sober in 1992. Bobby Sue Kitchen just donated $50 Canadian, says, enjoy your time in Canada, celebrating your first super chat. Thank you very much. And I'm glad you guys are here. We're back up to 3,700 people. And so I want to keep focused on my content, because this is really important stuff. It turns out that this work was prophetic, and it was an outcropping of what had been years of UFO research. By the time I started doing the remote viewing work, I had been reading books on UFOs for years. And I had, what the hell is that? It says I'm trying to pay with Apple Pay in China. Your iPhone is trying to pay in China to ensure the safety of your accounts. Please use Find My to remove your Apple ID and cancel your payment as soon as possible. This will unbind your Apple ID from another device. Remove this device. Okay, well, let's do that. Let's do that right now if it's going to work. Let's see. I'll put on my Colin McGee's glasses, mate. I think I should probably do this, so let's see if it works. Devices. Kai Del Montana. I don't know, you guys. I don't see it. Netherlands. Oh, no location found online. No, I don't see it. I don't see anything. So I don't know what the hell that was. Not sharing my location. I don't appear to be in China, you guys. That was a very, very strange. This is probably more of like intelligence community messing with me. It's very strange, but okay. I don't see anything in China. Looks like a scam. Get out quickly. Yeah, you're probably right. Yeah, it is. It's probably some type of weird trolling scam. That's not actually Apple support at all. Okay, you guys, I'm just stupid spam. Just delete it. Yep. Sorry I didn't donate more, says Emily Howard. Don't worry about it. A box of Idaho mashed potatoes is $5. You can, well, they won't let you bring food in. That's the point. It's kind of not polite to do that. But anyway, I didn't really get hacked. You're right. It's just spam. Okay, fine. It's just a scam. Well, it was very convincing looking, I got to say. I've never seen that one before. And I was already talking about identity theft. Isn't that strange? Jacob Almond, he says, I feel like a staged alien invasion is a pretty desperate move. Once they open Pandora's box, there's no going back. Where more people are going to get awakened. Yes, I agree. I mean, that's really the focus of what today's show is about, is that the alliance has continued to telegraph that this is going to happen week after week after week after week. And they did it again this past week. And then I went and I watched Luis Elizondo on Joe Rogan, and he's saying some pretty compelling stuff. So I am going to run through my slides. I'll do that in the cabin. I'll upload it as a video. Hopefully it'll get uploaded. It won't get blocked. We'll find out. I'll have to be very careful about words and what I say. But I think I can do a record into the, I'll just stream into the recording system on Wirecast. But I really have no idea why I couldn't broadcast. It's very upsetting. And anyway, yeah. So Elizondo goes all the way back to the original Tom DeLonge, to the Stars Academy of Arts and Science. I'm going to talk about all that stuff because he's come out on Joe Rogan, which is obviously, like, the YouTube video alone had 2 million views. He also did something on News Nation, had 1 million views. And they talked about the caudate putamen. This is a part of the brain, or caudate. I'm not sure how you exactly are supposed to pronounce it. But it's a part of the brain that he said people that do remote viewing, this part of the brain gets larger. And apparently they've done, in these intelligence community stuff, they've done studies on this, that part of the brain gets bigger. And he said they don't know if you can grow it to be bigger by doing remote viewing or if it's just larger with people who are receptive to this. But these are people who have extraterrestrial phenomena. Daniel Sullivan says rap and hip hop, R&B, I felt was really dark in the late 80s, early 90s. Spread to the 90s. Rock was starting to get dark. 2000s, more so, angry more. Pop rock was gone and more pop music coming in. And then Government Corp Watch says, I played 25 seconds of Joe Rogan Elizondo to promote it, get people to watch it, and I got copyright striked because I was giving commentary on the clip. Yeah, you can't play any videos, okay? Like, you might get away with it, but you might not. And so you really don't want to use anybody else's content. You just got to generate your own content. It's very important. So yeah, the title of today's talk is The Great Alien Deception, and it appears from many, we'll do another video called that as well, but it appears from many of these insider reports that there's going to be a staged fake attack. And we heard this from Dr. Carol Rosin, who got it from Werner von Braun, who was the founder of NASA, the German rocket scientist, supposedly didn't have anything to do with the party that was in power in World War II. That's a big stretch. I think they all were. And he claimed on his deathbed to her that there was this, covert element in the world that is negative, that's on a very much more powerful level than most people could have imagined up until recently. And that there was a group opposing them, and that when they were out of time and all was lost and they really were on their last legs, that they were going to try this staged fake alien invasion. I honestly do have a hard time believing that this could happen. It seems so outrageous. But then again, look at the desperation that we just saw. There was another shooting today. I just went and looked it up. It says it right here. That they engaged in a gunfire exchange. That this was at the Trump International Golf Club. It's like, wow. I mean, holy crap, you guys. So I don't think we're waiting until November. That's the point. I think that things are accelerating very quickly because the candidate they've got in their corner right now is not doing very well. Some of the slides that we had, they were talking about that she apparently was tipped off on all the questions in advance. Clear Choice Realty just donated $20. Their 5th super chat. Thank you very much. Dave NT9E said, I maxed out my first credit card in 1977 by buying a PAIA 4700 synthesizer kit. That's awesome. I don't know. I think, you know, let's not rule out the possibility that this could really happen, because you got Elizondo out there and he's on Joe Rogan and he was part of the original Tom DeLonge thing. And in fact, let me show you this. This is something I can actually do. Uh, One of the things that they came out with, let's unplug this, and then we'll do that. Okay, so this was they wanted to raise money. Whoops. They wanted to raise money to build you this. This was the spaceship that they said they were going to build. Okay, and you'll notice as you're looking at it that it's like a cylinder shape and it's got a round circle in the middle. And so not too long ago, I was talking to Chris Beskar from Stavati Aerospace. He's the CEO of our company. And as you know, I'm now working on hover cars, anti-gravity. And I said, well, Chris, what are some of the designs that you actually built? Could you describe to me what some of these ships that you actually built when you were in these secret programs looked like? And he said, well, yeah, there was one of them that was a cylinder and it had a round disc at the top. And I was like, oh my God, that's that Tom DeLonge thing. And he said, yeah, they basically copied my design and used that design to raise money. I'm like, well, Chris, you're so humble. I never even heard you mention this before. So that was a very strange thing, because as soon as he started to describe this, I'm like, wow, that's the Tom DeLonge craft. Again, what I found out was, and we'll talk more about this in the next video, that that you can steer with this circular area here. You turn on gravitational. It's like a pie, and there's different parts of the pie, and so you get a vector of gravity that can go in a different direction. So this guy can actually navigate very fast. You can steer very quickly. You can steer around and go in, all these different fast hairpin turns and stuff with that craft. It's pretty amazing the functionality that it actually has. It's a fighter. It works very well. So there was something behind the Tom DeLonge thing, but he was trying to raise money, and they didn't really raise anywhere near as much as they thought they would. He put in $1 million of his own money in the initial raise, and then ended up $37 million in debt. And they weren't able to raise more than a little over, I think, $1.2 million from the audience. And so that was back in 2017. They launched all that stuff. And it almost was like they wanted him to be like me, Tom DeLonge, the rock star, UFO guy, out there in the public eye. He wouldn't do conferences. He wouldn't go to any of the major UFO conferences. He didn't want to interact with the public. And when he went on Joe Rogan, in my slides that I'll do later this week and upload, he said some really strange stuff. He was very evasive. He kept saying, well, I can't talk about this. I can't talk about that. And Elizondo was part of the team from the beginning. And now when you watch the News Nation video, which again had 940,000 views the last time I saw it, Elizondo was saying that he moved out to California to work with Tom DeLonge, and the whole thing collapsed. And his wife ended up having to get a job and work at Target. And then I think the next one was Home Depot. So they did not have the ability to raise money the way they thought. And the UFO community is not a big profitable thing. You're not going to make a fortune doing this. And so the millions of dollars that they thought they would raise to build that spaceship that I just showed you didn't end up happening. And the only way that I was able to fund Stavati was by doing online conferences, where I was actually offering content at the same ticket price as a conference. But unlike a conference where you might get 50 to 200 people, I was getting several thousand of them at conference prices, and thus I had enough money to actually fund Stavati. And somebody just sent me another thing about the shots being fired by text. So, I went through all this stuff and I looked at it and I said to myself, I don't know if anybody could raise money, because if Tom DeLonge couldn't do it with all the media behind him and the UFO videos going mainstream, and he was on Joe Rogan, he's got millions of listeners, nobody wanted to invest in his venture. It was kind of disheartening. But now you've got Luis Elizondo out there, and I have to say he is amazing. He was on Joe Rogan, and that's really the preeminent show. The News Nation thing is a little collection of sound bites. It's like 45 minutes long, whereas the Joe Rogan thing goes on for like 2 hours and 15 minutes. Elizondo is fully articulate. He's got incredible verbal flow. He doesn't use verbal pauses, just like I was saying, well, I mean, that kind of stuff. He doesn't do that. He's got a really nice, smooth flow, and he's very intelligent. And at the same time, the original people who were part of the Tom DeLonge initiative were all coming out of the three-letter agency that we all know and love as the company. And so even the word company, the first letter, gives you a clue as to what those three letters are, if you catch what I'm saying. So there were two people in the company, in Tom's company, who were part of the company. And one of them was like the director of clandestine operations. It's like, why would the director of clandestine operations end up going into this UFO company if they weren't still doing some type of clandestine operation? Clandestine meaning hidden and secret and crazy, not what you would expect. I don't know. That's a good question, isn't it? So I really do support Lou. I think he's on the right track here, but we also have to go beyond the fact that he's a very sympathetic figure. And we just have to ask ourselves, is it possible? Because I'm always doing this. I'm always like looking at both sides. Is it possible that there's something else going on here? Is it possible that the people he's working with are not telling him everything about what their plans are? Is it possible that they've only given him a very small amount of information and that they're using him in some way and he's not even aware of it? And he said, if anybody's lying, that's really reprehensible to him. He doesn't like lying. Well, there's evidence that these people are working concealed agenda, because when you look at the alliance posts that I've been telling you about, they keep warning us that there could be some sort of staged fake alien invasion. And so right now, I think you can say those words here and it's not going to be a problem. That might change. It doesn't really seem even possible that this could actually happen, but the alliance posted something that showed scenes from the movie Independence Day of these massive disc-shaped craft that are just much bigger than skyscrapers and covering many, many blocks of cities, covering over the White House, covering over with a shadow, covering over the Statue of Liberty. Terrifying, because it ended up being a negative attack in the case of Independence Day. So my insider just texted me and said he thinks that the cyber strike is inbound. Well, man, I hope that there isn't a whole bunch of stuff that falls apart while I'm here in Canada, because I'm going to have to get back into America. I don't want the borders to get locked up. But yeah, if they're going to go that far, if they're going to do this shooting again, try it again. I mean, thankfully, it didn't seem to be as near of a miss as the last one. But still, this is very unnerving for me to be on the air with you guys talking about this stuff with you, and then this happens while I'm on the air. Like, woo, okay, dang. But we're going to keep going. We're an hour and 52 minutes in. Terry says, you have an amazing personality, David. You are brilliant and quite handsome too. I'm sorry for your troubles. You deserve all the best. Well, I don't know how great the lighting is on my nose, as I said, but whatever. You get the point. This is what you got, and I'm in a really crazy blue room here. I could maybe change the color, but I like the blue. I could make it pink. I could make it purple. I could do just about anything I want with these lights. There's a red color. There's a green color. There's a yellow color. All that kind of stuff could be done. We could make it like Ukraine. We could do Ukraine colors. Alexis Anderson says, you can stay at my house. I have an extra guest bedroom. And I'm sure she wouldn't show up in the middle of the night or anything weird would happen. I'm just joking. Alexis. I'm just joking. Yeah, it's fun. It's fun to be on vacation. And I know that there's such a huge community. I mean, just at this hotel, I had people wanting to hang out with me, people recognizing me, wanting to, have a beer with me, which I don't drink. And I'm not doing marijuana either. Completely clean. I don't do caffeine. I mean, I might have a little bit of chocolate, but I don't drink coffee. I have fake cigarettes that I can pretend to be smoking, but they're not real. That's just like, talcum powder coming out of that thing. This, by the way, is the company. It's a puff cigarette. Okay. So you get two per pack, and I bought like a whole bunch of these. You put it in your mouth. It looks cool, and you can pretend that you're smoking. You know, but then there's nothing really happening. You're not actually jeopardizing anybody's health. Where is Angry Daddy? God damn it, boy! You shouldn't fall for those scams on the internet. You should be smarter than that, son. I raised you not to make so many stupid mistakes. What the hell is this? I can go on and on with that stuff. So I don't know. I mean, how do you talk about this? How do you talk about the idea that there could be a fake invasion? I mean, obviously, if this were to happen, Vince Free said, I purchased your special deal on the Sacred Science videos a couple days ago. It's phenomenal. I highly recommend it for those who want to dive deeper into the teachings. God bless you. Yeah, I mean, I've literally got just enough money to get through this vacation. Stavati, our aerospace company, is very close to getting funded, but it's not there yet. And until we really have the money, we're in super big trouble. So we have like a $5,200 insurance payment, or we're going to lose our insurance. It's coming in on Monday. I might have to cover that one because, again, I'm like the only person in the board who can usually cover these expenses. But we're very close to getting funded. And so I did send out a second email for the upgrade, people that already bought the books. If you haven't done that yet, if I send you emails on the upgrade and you can afford to do it, please do it. It's $88. It will really, really help me out right now. Or if you want to buy all 7 of the books and you want to get the videos, we got a deal for $177. You go to thedisclosure.com and enter in the code actualization. ACTUALIZATION. And, you know, that helps me tremendously because, again, I've never taken advertising money. I mean, I do get basic advertising revenue. It's just a basic part of being on YouTube. But there are special things I could do, like pre-rolls and mid-rolls, where I read somebody else's product for 60 seconds. And then I get paid very significantly, actually. And we heard about this scandal with Tenet Media, right? And then that included Benny Johnson and some other figures where they were getting paid just ridiculous amounts of money for doing YouTube videos, like $100,000 a video. I'm only making like 10 grand a month, you know? So it was like, whoa. And $400,000 a month was one of the other ones. Sacred Science is well worth it. Here's a whiner, Anthony Ball. Sorry to call you out for whining. Why is the title The Great Alien Deception? You haven't said anything about aliens. I totally have. This is all part of the setup, okay? So I've been talking about doing the Michael prophecies and the fact that, you know, we've got the Alliance doing these weekly posts. I wanted to read slides for you guys, but again, I couldn't do the show because I couldn't log in to Telestream Wirecast and get it to stream. So I don't have my slides. I only am doing a webcam here, which is why if I shake the table, that the darn thing jiggles like that. It's very annoying. So it kind of threw me off, and we're going to do another show, as I said before. If maybe you're just tuning in, we're up to 4,000 people now. If you're just tuning in, we're going to do another show later in the week where I will read those slides, and I'm just going to upload it, and it's not going to be live. And let's hope that it actually will upload. When I'm feeling good and I'm at my cabin, I'll do it in the cabin. I'll have a blue background like this, but it'll be a bigger space, and it'll be fun. So anyway, yeah, there's a lot going on, and maybe I'll even do some exterior shots. Maybe I'll do some editing and cut some things in while I'm outside because I got my little camera, the Pocket 3. How do you talk about this? How do you talk about the idea that there could be a fake alien invasion? Well, I mean, very few people are aware of my content, even in the UFO community as a whole. I notice that I'm typically ignored. When people talk about the UFO community, they typically don't include me. Elizondo is supposedly more credible or something. That's okay if the people want to believe that. But I know that if something like this did happen, let's just talk about what the scenario is, okay? We've all heard the term Project Bluebeam. Probably most of you have. This apparently is a holographic projection system that could look like a massive UFO when it's really not. Now, they might also do this with drones inside the hologram, so that this massive fake UFO actually can shoot. And it actually has beams that come out, and it could cause significant loss of life and significant damage. Close that door behind you. I just saw something in there. Well, maybe you're tripping out on that. There's nobody in here. Trust me. I don't know what you saw, but you're not going to scare me if that's what you. I can tell if somebody was here. There was housekeeping outside before, but that's been it. I'm right in the corner of this big building. Thankfully, I'm right on the corner, so there's been no other activity around except for that one sound a little while ago. And the temperature's okay. It's not too hot in here. I had the window open, so we're just now at the 2-hour mark. I'm going to talk maybe for 2.5 hours, and then we'll stop. I don't want to go 4.5 hours. Just too much of a burnout. Even better, how do you talk about a real alien invasion? Well, that's the whole point. There's not going to be a real alien invasion. Based on the work that I've studied, based on the law of one, there are quarantines in place, and you couldn't have a real alien invasion. The negative is not allowed to do that. The negative has to work through human proxies, telepathic contact with people seeking out evil, seeking out the negative. You can get manifestations of beings in the room if you do it that way, both demonic entities and extraterrestrial negative beings, if you do it right. And again, we've talked many times about Aleister Crowley and that he was given these techniques by a gray extraterrestrial named Lam. And you look at the pictures of Lam or Awas, and it looks like a gray, except it's got smaller eyes. The eyes aren't quite as big and black, but that might have been a thought form that it gave him to make him feel a little more comfortable. Supposedly, as I found out from my latest briefings, that he was given the technology of how to do ritual magic and how to summon these lower astral beings in the room. And so, yeah, it's blue beam, not real, as Sugar Bee says. You could have drones inside a hologram, but you're not going to get a real alien invasion. And we also know that, for example, huge flying black triangles they're called the TR3B. You've probably all seen that. And I got extensive briefings from Dr. Pete Peterson, one of my top Area 51 insiders. I've spoken to many of them over the years, and they've proven to me that they were real. And that's why I ended up in Stavati. You know, Pete Peterson is the one who told me that Chris Beskar built many of the top spaceships. And I just found out 3 months ago that, yeah, guess what? This is a Chris Beskar design. And the people in Tom DeLonge's camp used this design to raise money. They actually said, if you give us money, we'll build that spaceship. Well, they already knew because the spaceship had already been built. It was one of Chris's designs. And so it's pretty much been all on my shoulders to fund this company. I've pretty much been doing this grassroots through your own help. So not only have I had to keep up with my own expenses and fight against massive tax debts. Somebody said, David Pepper NC said, David, have you heard of Chris Bledsoe and his experiences since 2007? No, I have not. If you see Jesus coming down from the sky, it's probably blue beam. Yes, I would agree. If anything really weird, supernatural, paranormal starts happening, do not believe that it's true. Whatever the media is going to tell you about this, at that point, I probably won't be able to talk about it anymore. Thank God I can right now, because I can get this out before it happens. You can go back and watch this video and say, darn, David was talking about this. Again, it's pretty wild, because if they do that, they've totally crossed the line. You can't put the toothpaste back in the tube. That was an expression, I believe, used by Bob Dylan or Mel Gibson, one of those two guys, to say what it's like to be famous. You can't put the toothpaste back in the tube. If you do a fake alien invasion, you can't put the toothpaste back in the tube. All of a sudden, UFOs becomes a very exciting and relevant subject for everyone. Nobody's going to be denying it anymore, because it's going to be like, people are freaking out. And if you remember what happened with War of the Worlds, 37 radio show, something like that, people were stuffing wet towels in their chimney. They were calling the switchboard operators, which you could talk to back then, trying to get information from them, sort of like an early form of social media. Call the operator. Guys, I don't even know what to say. I mean, once it happens, there's going to be such a flood of content and information. Adrian Stover just donated and said, I watched 2012 Event Horizon 2010. I eventually purchased Access Your Higher Self video series. It has really shifted my paradigm. I love your work. Thank you. Celebrating your first super chat. I really appreciate that. Yeah, so Elizondo's father did work for the company, the three-letter agency, and he says that in the News Nation interview, and he's got Tom DeLonge had at least two company individuals on his board of directors. So yeah, this appears to be coming from the company. The stuff that he was told, that Elizondo was told. Again, I totally support him. I think he's an awesome patriot. I have the utmost respect for him and his honor and his integrity. And I can't go full in on him though, because I know that the people that he's talking to might have an agenda that they would never tell him about. And so I don't want to disrespect him, but I also have to be pragmatic that could be what's going on. D just donated. Thank you, David, for sharing your information on vacation. I hope your vacation is awesome. Well, it would be more awesome if, you know, if my slides would work. I might have to, mess around next Saturday and just see if I can even get it to work. I don't know, but we'll do live streams off of the laptop like this. It's better than nothing. You guys are still here. We got 4,000 people watching live. And so I won't miss my income. That's another thing. I mean, honestly, I need this income. I need the income from doing these shows. And so, taking a month off to do a vacation is almost like kicking my teeth out if I don't do live shows because I need that $10,000. So, but wow, getting paid $400,000 a month to do YouTube, like when the money's that big, it's always a little scary because you're like, what's the real agenda here? Why would somebody pay me this much to do this stuff, And sure enough, it looks like it was a setup. Now they're trying to say Russia, Russia, Russia. Monoblock says, don't forget to ground barefoot while you're on vacation. I don't know if I'm doing that. It's a little bit too cold out here in Canada to go walking around in your bare feet. But anyway, watch your words, literally creating your reality. Keep your eyes open for tricks and triggers. David, Tarotina says, David, you have to watch Bledsoe talking about Tim and his dragon office in NASA between military control and scientist control. I'm not aware of that. And that somebody was saying Disney World on Halloween changes Cinderella's castle. This is Lexi Abbey to a haunted house using holographic lights. You can't tell it's not real. Very interesting. So yeah, what we're expecting is, again, November's not going to work out the way they want. So look at what just happened today at the Trump golf course. Another shooting has taken place. They're really afraid because what's behind him is what most people who are asleep have no idea about, that there's actually a massive intelligence community effort. Stephen W. just donated $100, said, enjoy your vacation, celebrating his 10th super chat. Thank you very much, Stephen. Lisa Cribb says, I have to go for a while from what is going on. My heart is broken for some people. Well, look, this is exciting, though. If they do this, let's talk about the law of one and what would happen if they did this, okay? If this actually were done, if there actually was a staged fake invasion, at that point, you've now got the opening of the door of free will for positive extraterrestrial beings to intervene in ways that we've never seen before. They can show up in the sky. They can do all this stuff that they wouldn't have done before. And this is something that they call the principle of balancing. The negative can't interfere more than they're allowed to by humanity. We have to give authorization. So the positive beings probably wouldn't allow the negative fake invasion to even occur. Now, this is one of the things that Elizondo was kind of confused about. He made some very provocative statements in the News Nation interview that I would have to take umbrage with and say, no, I'm sorry, that's not true, man. First of all, he said there's nothing about these beings that shows that they're benevolent. I would strongly disagree. And he also admitted that on Joe Rogan, he admitted that he has not studied the UFO field. He only learns what they're telling him to say. He's not doing his own independent study. So there's all these different ancient cultures that had human-looking extraterrestrials show up for them that were benevolent, and those human ETs are still here. And if you talk to insiders who worked at Cosmic Clearance, which is way beyond the stuff that Elizondo's been getting, at that level, they're dealing with these human ETs in person. You get to see them. You get to talk to them. You have this blissed out consciousness. So both positive and negative beings are working with the military-industrial complex. And the positive beings, in my case, spoke to me in the 1990s using remote viewing, what I called the dream voice. and I dictated thousands of pages of material, and I published it, on my website beginning in 1999. And it went through the end of 96. It went through all of 1997. I was doing this at least 3 or 4 times a week, getting these long messages in telepathically. I didn't know what the heck it meant. A lot of it didn't make any sense. I had a study group in 1998, and they kind of got tired of listening to this stuff because a lot of it didn't make sense. It was very encrypted. So I went through all of 97 doing this, all of 98 doing this, all of 99 doing this. By 99, I'm getting much longer readings. So 99 had to be broken into books 4, 5, 6, and 7. 99 and 2000 alone created 4 books in the series. So book 1 of Michael Prophecies is 1996 and 97. Book 2 and 3 is 98. And then 4, 5, 6, and 7 are all 99 and 2000. So I kept doing more content, more pages. Because as I kept practicing this, just like getting better in an instrument with music, as I kept practicing this, I'd get more results that would last a longer period of time. Kwan Hong Chan donated $100 in Hong Kong money. I have heard about a plan where malevolent ETs come to Earth as saviors, pretending to save us, having us join a galactic alliance. In reality, it is a trap. How can we tell which ETs are genuinely good and which are not? I don't think it's going to be that sophisticated. I don't think it's going to be like the movie V, where they pretend that they're good and they're really not. I think what we're probably going to see, if this does happen, would be just a straight up alien invasion. But this is the part that I haven't spoken about yet, you guys. There are positive agencies that have this UFO material as well. And that would include like the DIA, as I said before, Defense Intelligence Agency, was started by John F. Kennedy. And it sounds like CIA. It's only one letter different, but they're very different. They're very, very different. And that was the main group, according to Pete Peterson, that was holding on to this stuff. And I think it's a big part of the alliance. It's a big part of what's behind 45, what was behind the posts, as I've called them. So they are in possession of at least, at the very, very least, I'm aware that they have 4,500 spaceships. Think about that. 4,500. And that's just from one Pete Peterson briefing of one type of spaceship that I was aware of. It's probably a lot more than that. So they have a massive armada, and the usual suspects who are going to try to do this on a fake level, they probably don't have any idea exactly how many craft their adversary has, the Alliance. So the Alliance, what I think is going to happen, to answer Kwan Hong Chan's question, because he always tends to be a little freaked out by a lot of stuff. He tends to go down these paranoid rabbit holes. We have to kind of reel him back in, but he's giving me money. So, thank you for donating, and I'm happy to answer your questions. I think, based on everything that I know, that any fake invasion is going to be squashed immediately. I think that if they dare to try it, it's going to fall apart probably within the same day. You can have shoot downs occur. One of the posts that we got from a week or two ago was of these weird meteors in the sky that looked like maybe something had gotten shot down. Yeah, it probably was a craft. So if they tried the Project Bluebeam, if they tried the fake alien invasion thing, I don't even think they're going to get anywhere with it. I think that what you're going to see is a massive number of ships. And again, I was just briefed less than 3 months ago that these are real. This is one of Chris's designs. This is a space fighter. You can steer the thing with the stuff in the middle there that you can light up certain pieces of the pie and then get a steering effect to occur. So you're going to see probably ships like that. You're going to see some other designs as well. You're going to see triangles. I really don't know. Honestly, Chris has been much more coy about his own classified information than I ever got from Pete. Pete Peterson would just talk and tell me everything he knew. And Chris has given me very, very little. To his credit, honestly, he's upholding his security oath. He's upholding his obligation that he took. And so I'm not even asking for information. I don't need to leak all this stuff out because what good does it do? Honestly, like, most people don't believe it, and the people who do believe it, did you really need to know what a spaceship looks like? No, not really. Tom Getz just donated, and it's his first super chat. Thank you very much, Tom. And we're now up to almost 4,100 people. So if I just keep talking, more of you guys keep showing up. So we had a very upsetting event today. Another shooting took place around Trump's golf course. It's pretty shocking stuff, and it seems very timely in terms of that there's an agenda here that the powers that were, they're very afraid of what's going on, and that is actually because positive things are happening. So we need to stay alive. Obviously, you don't want to be taken out of the game at this point, but the game is very exciting. And if they're this desperate that they're willing to do another shooting, if they're this desperate that they might have cheated on the last talk that everybody had that we all got to watch last Tuesday, and that she was maybe given the questions in advance, maybe she had earrings that worked as a two-way radio, she could hear what they were telling her to say, all that stuff. Apparently there's whistleblowers coming forward is going to say all those things. The wheels are falling off, and they're pretty quickly running out of any other option. So if they do this fake invasion, it's not going to go the way they want, again, because there's multiple aspects of secret programs that got consolidated into what we're now calling Space Force. So even when I'm saying DIA, my guess is that the elements of DIA that had these things in that Pete was telling me about would now be called Space Force. So Space Force is a lot more interesting than we think. And I believe that depending on how far into it you get, and remember, you can now sign up for the Army, the Navy, the Air Force, the Marines, or Space Force. And Space Force met all of their recruiting requirements. So at the deeper levels of Space Force, I do believe this stuff is going on. Salvatore Pais, who had the UFO patents, was talking about that he works for Space Force and that he implied that he's working on spaceship designs. My company, Stavati Aerospace, our company, it's not just my company, but I've been helping the company. We would have died, 700 times if it wasn't for me helping the company, honestly. It's only because you guys are buying my products, upgrading, Sacred Science and Michael Prophecies. That's how we've been able to do this. It's not from getting ad money. It's not from taking any weird, shady deals. And the private investor seems to almost be a myth. We're really working more now with governments and institutional investors, but a private individual who's just one guy who supposedly has a lot of money and wants to invest it. We've been down so many rabbit holes like this. Chris and I were talking, we almost need to do like a show just on talking about how hard it is to raise money and all the scams and con artists out there. That's why it's like, I just have to laugh when people call me a con artist, because a con artist is somebody who tells you a story and they don't actually give you anything. The story is only intended to get you to give them money. I don't care if people donate or not. I'm giving out lots and lots of content. I've written entire books, and that is a legitimate form of art, and it's a legitimate form of science. Just because it's alternative science, it's breakthrough science, doesn't mean that it isn't something people want to hear. We have almost 4,200 people watching right now, so clearly this material is very popular. You guys forgive me for having this very strange kind of dark set and the one camera angle, whatever. We're all still here. People are saying DUMBs, deep underground military bases. So yeah, that's another part of it. The Space Force has these deep underground military bases, and if there was to be a staged fake attack, the DS, I don't think, has any idea of just how many ships are in the other side's camp, in the Space Force camp. I mean, I know for a fact there's at least 4,500, and I would imagine that there's tens of thousands, at least tens of thousands. And these are highly advanced anti-gravity machines with very advanced weapon systems. In fact, I'll give you a little secret. One of the things that is going to be widely used once we get disclosure is called a gas dynamic laser. And so the gas dynamic laser is incredibly powerful. It pulls energy out of the power plant that runs the spaceship, and you can get multiple bursts of laser beams per second. I forget how many per second, but it's a lot. and each one of them is enough to blow something up. And so you pull it right out of the powertrain, you get this very powerful laser, and you can shoot it multiple times per second, maybe even maybe over 100 times a second. I forget, but it's a lot. So it could be like a laser machine gun. And so don't think for a minute that after Roswell happened in 1947, that they've just been sitting around yawning saying, maybe someday we're going to build a spaceship. No, dude. They've got stuff that you can't even believe. The technology is so advanced, it's so amazing, and there's so much of it. It would totally blow your mind to even try to comprehend the scope of what's out there, the scope of what's already being used, the efficacy of this technology, the amount of technology that's available is vast. And so, any fake alien invasion is gonna clunk to the ground. It's gonna be a clunker. It's not going to go in any way like what they think would happen. They're not going to be able to scare you. They're not going to be able to take over the media and drive a narrative that says, oh, we know what these beings are. It's these scary reptilian things, or it's a scary octopus people, or it's the scary grays, and we know where they came from. They're not going to be able to control that narrative. They're certainly not going to be able to just park these things in the sky and have them sit there without being challenged. There's going to be a firefight. There's going to be a firefight in the air between Space Force and these fake craft. And I don't know how many craft the other side has, but I do believe that the Space Force has a much larger number of these that will actually function. And so it could get into being like a shooting battle. I forgot the nickname just donated. I tried to go to the moon with astral projection. The military contacted me with a voice to skull and blocked my ability to OBE, blocking my crown chakra, celebrating your third super chat. I've been to the moon, actually. It's pretty amazing in out of body and dreams. So glad you are safe, says Mr. Danke. Hope you have a super satisfying vacation. Looking forward to the future and our hover car parties. Yeah. I mean, we're very close now. We have one guy who's a big supporter of 45, and he just showed up, and he has now said he wants to invest. And it actually went up from 15M to 40M. So that's very positive. That could happen this coming week. We've got an institutional lender for 15, because again, the private investor usually seems to be a myth. We've got a major country that's supposed to be doing an upgrade contract with us, and that's for 250M. That's supposed to happen anytime now. In fact, they were supposed to perform last Tuesday, but they didn't. It's a Baltic country. Oh, we got so many things going on. It's just frustrating that it always takes a little bit longer, but we're about to make it, and I hope that I'll make it before the trip is over. It would be great, because I've got, money that's owed to me for working on the board all these years, and I get some reimbursement on the money that I invested. So I'll be able to get out of tax debt, and I won't have to be so constantly broke all the time. But I've already been preparing for that by giving you guys great content that you don't have to pay for. That's been my jam. Is I'm not out here selling a bunch of products. I'm not out here making you pay to hear this information or that information. Yes, I have Michael prophecies and sacred science, but a lot of the stuff that I used to do that was for money, I'm now just giving away in these videos that I'm doing. It's pretty cool. So I feel good about that. My goal has always been to get to a point where everything is essentially given away. Now, the only caveat to that is that in order to not be censored, in order to have all my content available, I might need to do a streaming network, but I haven't even done that yet, and if I did, I'd probably make a lot more money. Where is Space Force building these craft, off-world or question mark? As far as I know, that's from J Toel, 5th super chat. As far as I know, they don't have any plants that build spaceships on the surface of the Earth. They have huge underground facilities where they can build them underground or off planet. I've never really heard about them being built off planet, but I know that there's a lot of equipment that's on these ships that comes from here. So when you go to these off-world bases, according to various insiders, it's not as futuristic as you think. The art department hasn't caught up with Hollywood. So you're going to have normal-looking buildings. They're just on a different planet, or they're on an asteroid or a moon. It doesn't look like Star Trek. It doesn't have doors that open like this. You just got a door with a doorknob. It's metal, and you just crank the doorknob and open the door. It's just like any other place. It's typical architecture, typical windows. They're not fancy. They don't look amazing. They don't look like something out of a Hollywood movie. But we do, according to Pete, before he died, he told me we have 65 different locations around the galaxy that have typically at least 3,000 soldiers at them. And some of them could be halfway across the galaxy. So there is a heck of a lot to learn. And if the powers that were try to do this fake attack, I think that Space Force is going to come back with a much higher amount of counterattack. And you're going to see battles in the sky. You're going to see things getting shot at. You're going to see things getting shot down. You're going to see smoldering wreckage falling out of the sky, crashing on the ground, big fireball, lots of smoke, weird extraterrestrial looking stuff on the ground. What the hell is that? Yeah, some of it's going to be blue beam. The big stuff is not real. It's going to be holographic. They do have big flying triangles. There could be flying triangles that are actually blimps. They're stealth blimps. They can be a mile long, and they're dirigibles actually. And it turns out that a triangle is a very nice, stable design for a dirigible, and you can also make it into a tetrahedron. So you can take your triangular dirigible, and then you make that the bottom, and then you have the sides that come up like a pyramid, and three-sided pyramid. So there's those. I know about that as a TR-3B. I know that we have the craft like the one I showed you that Tom DeLonge was doing, and there's other designs as well. So again, I'm kind of glad that I don't have that much to know. I mean, there's nothing classified. It's not like somebody could kidnap me and interrogate me and get anything that I don't already tell you guys. I already tell you everything I know. There's nothing that I'm hiding. I mean, there's a couple things. There's a name of an alien species that I know about that I haven't made public yet. Those particular types actually have chitin. They actually kind of are like insect or crustacean almost. They have some kind of strange bodies. So I know what the name of that one is. But I mean, there's so little stuff that there's an Oompa Loompa type of people. I haven't really talked about them too much. They're fairly common. They're little short round people that look like the Oompa Loompas in I don't know what their real name is, but they're colloquially called Oompa Loompas. There's a lot of those, and they're little round people. And so that's one of the main extraterrestrial groups that we've been working with on the inside, like what we would see in Wizard of Oz. Judy Booth donated $12. Thank you for all that you do. High five to your staff for helping me out. Great. David, it's been said that Elon is actually bad. Can you elaborate? Well, I support Elon because of what he did with X. And I just hope that he can, be able to do the right thing for us because he's been an amazing guy. Jay Parsons donated $100 Canadian. Welcome to Canada, dude. Have a fancy steak on me. Yeah, that's about $10 more than it costs to have a fancy steak at this place. It's $90 to get your AAA Alberta tenderloin ribeye. It wasn't really worth it. I got to say, it's like I still got a little bit of the steak hanging out in the window over here to keep it cool because I don't want to run the refrigerator. That thing is so freaking noisy. And you can see how tiny this room is. Anyway, I'm happy to be here today, you guys, and it's been great to do this show with you. I'm going to wrap it up in the next few minutes. But what can I say? This is my perspective on what could happen. The Alliance keeps teasing this stuff. I'll talk for maybe 10 more minutes. We'll go for like 2 hours and 45 minutes or so. Because I do have to pee. I mean, I could take a pee break, but then you guys would probably hear it. And I couldn't really mute that. I guess I could mute. It looks like there's a mute button down here. But anyway, I'll just go a little bit longer and then stop. The Elizondo thing is very concerning. Let's talk about that a little more. When he was on Joe Rogan, he's talking about massive UFOs. He's talking about, for example, that Cosmic Origins just donated. Thank you for your service, David. Can you tell us what you know about the 9? Mention the Law of 1. Well, that could be a setup because there was a book that was trying to attack the Law of 1. You cannot assume that just because somebody says the 9, that it's the same thing. There was stuff that came through Uri Geller that talked about the 9. There's other channel material that talks about the nine. It runs the spectrum from very positive to very negative. There is a specific type of nine beings in the Law of One that are called the Council of Saturn that are actually very positive because, again, the Law of One is a Christian teaching and they are making sure that we don't have any bad stuff happen to us. But then there's lots of other nine stuff that's very frightening and negative. So you just got to use discernment. Greetings from Norway, says Chris. I'm visiting Hesdalen soon, a place in Norway with much UFO activity. Yes, the orbs. Lights and metallic craft have been seen there for years. What do you think is happening there? That would be a vortex point where you get these natural self-luminous phenomena, or NSLFs. And one of the things Elizondo talked about was St. Elmo's fire. And that was interesting. I'd never really heard about St. Elmo's fire enough to know what it really was, but he said that this was on News Nation. He said that sometimes ships on the ocean and sometimes planes in the air will get this greenish glow around the masts and around the tips of the wings. And it's this plasma type of discharge that's happening. That's actually similar to the Hesdalen lights in Norway. These are natural phenomena, and they do create anti-gravity, and it is essentially the basis of all UFO technology, anti-gravity technology. What's amazing is, according to the Russian scientists, you are taking gravity and you're turning it into electromagnetic energy in the form of light and in the form of actual power. So the universe is built for us to make spaceships. The universe creates these natural orbs, and when you get them, you have anti-gravity inside them, and they also generate enough energy to power your ship. So it is like a Goldilocks principle. The universe is built for us to be able to easily and effectively make spaceships. And it's really, really cool. And when you see ball lightning, that is an example of this. And one of the things that Elizondo talks about more in News Nation in that interview, which again has had 940,000 views the last I checked, was that there's what they call a hitchhiker effect, which is that once you start working with extraterrestrials, they start greeting you in your home if you work on these types of topics. So Michael Larson just donated. David, is the Galactic Federation part of the Alliance? I would say, again, everything is subjective. If somebody is channeling and they say they're in touch with the Galactic Federation, it doesn't all mean that's true. You have to remember that most channeling that's out there is just largely the conscious mind's distortions. Maybe there's some degree of signal in there. That doesn't really appear to be what happened with Michael prophecies. So again, I did all this work in the 1990s with the remote viewing, with the dream voice. And then beginning in 2022, I started to unseal the readings, which means I hadn't even read most of them. I transcribed them in trance. I uploaded them onto my website with very, very minimalistic headlines. I only put headlines in every now and then, for maybe not even at all. I really didn't even read them. And so looking at them in 2022, it was like looking at them for the first time. Steve Schuster just donated. Thank you very much. And I found out, wow, this stuff is amazingly dialed in. It's amazingly relevant to everything that's going on in the present. These works that I channeled in the late 1990s are now talking about Biden, Harris, Trump, Obama. I mean, stunning. The amount of corollary to what is going on in the world was stunning. And it was truly fascinating, as I would be, again, just like I said, that I had tapes on my desk and I'd transcribe the tapes, and then the tapes would come true, and they would be talking about something that just happened to me right before I sat down, even though they might have been dictated 3 weeks ago. Well, now we're talking about stuff that I dictated in like 1997, and now it's 2022. So we're talking about, like, in that case, it's what, 24, 25, 26 years later. And it's talking about what's happening in our present. It's talking about all the stuff that's going on in the present, the politics, talks about the alliance, talks about the events that took place in the year 2020, all of the things that we've been through that seem so unthinkable. Once you have been past the year 2020, and then you can go back and say, oh yeah, that's when we all had to start wearing this stuff on our faces. And that's when there was medical treatments. And that's when there was this big thing that everybody was worried about. It's everywhere in the readings I did in the 1990s. It is everywhere. Prophecy after prophecy after prophecy after prophecy. It is absolutely amazing. And again, it's somewhat humbling to have to promote this stuff, because There's never been anything else like it. I've studied the Nostradamus quatrains in great depth. I know what they have as strengths. I know what they have as weaknesses. They're often very vague. You could read in a lot of stuff to them that might not really be there. I've studied all the prophecy sources that are out there, even Edgar Casey. I mean, yeah, the stuff was great. But as far as being prophetic of what's going on now, yeah, there's some. It talks about that the rottenness would be exposed in the world. Um, I don't know about what XRP is. Somebody says, do you have an insight on connection between BRICS and Ripple XRP? I honestly don't. But thank you for writing and thank you for donating. Rock Lobster LOL. Book of Revelations as well as the Daniel prophecies. Yeah, I mean, so Revelations and Daniel are amazing, but even then, what we get in Michael prophecies is very specific. You're not getting anywhere near the degree of granular specificity in these old scriptural texts that you get in Michael prophecies. Michael prophecies gives you names. It talks about a lot of the names in the truth community with specific detail. It talks about the alliance over and over and over again. It talks about Space Force. It talks about the number 17. They make lots of jokes with the number 17. Nobody had heard of that back in 1996 through 2000. It wasn't even a thing. So it was very, the term mystified, awed, and humbled. I got divorced. I was in extreme trauma from it. I was left alone in my cabin up in the woods in very severe cold weather. Had nowhere else to go. I couldn't afford to leave. And I was, deeply hurt just because obviously, that's what divorce is. It's not fun for anybody. And in the process, what kept me going was doing these books. And I worked on them for 2 years with basically no income and got in trouble with taxes, which I'm still trying to dig my way out of now. But you guys I didn't even have anything to offer for sale. I hardly did any videos. I was just pretty much gone in the year 2022. And it wasn't until December 2022 that I finally had the books come out as book 1 was the first product for sale. I thought I was only going to do 3. And then it turns out that it morphed into 7 books because that's just how many it took to get it all put together properly. Love the Blue, says Gina, the one and only 22. Thank you, Gina. So it's been an amazing journey writing these 7 books. I didn't, I started working on them in January of 2022 and I didn't finish until October 2023. I was working on them the whole time, basically sparing no expense of time or energy to get them done, being broke in the process, living on very little money, which I still have been. And then I only really started to get back into doing videos regularly once I got a little less burned out, beginning in around February of this year. That's when I started to do regular weekly shows again. And then that income has stabilized me, about 10 grand a month, as I said. It's a little bit more than that now, a little bit higher, but not by much. So when we see what the Michael prophecies actually says, that's what's so stunning. The idea of a fake alien invasion could totally be read into by some of the stuff that's implied, because the Michael prophecies do predict there's going to be UFO events that are biblical in nature. And I do mean biblical. Whatever is going to happen, it's not just that we have Space Force that might have an armada of tens of thousands of ships that they can use to defend against anything like this that the negative would try. You also have positive extraterrestrials that vastly outnumber the negative ones. There's something like 52 or 53 in the Law of One. They say 53 civilizations in their positive angelic confederation. But out of those 53, then you look at how many negative groups there are, and there's only 6, the unholy 6, as described by George Hunt Williamson. So the positive beings in the universe vastly outnumber the negative ones. And if the negative tries to create some planetary takeover, it wouldn't work unless we authorized it. That's what the universal law is really about. There's one intelligent, infinite creator. It's a positive universe. There's a divinity to all this that's behind everything. And positive angelic beings are vastly more powerful than we think. So Elizondo says, I don't see any evidence that they're benevolent. They let us develop nuclear weapons. Yeah. They let us use them in Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Yeah. But that was just to teach us a lesson. There's been many, many, many times that they prohibited us from having nuclear war. There's a lot of nuclear saber rattling with Russia going on right now. One of the latest posts that we just had that I'll get into later this week. Oh, now I had another one, another fake Apple Pay thing, sign into iCloud. That's clearly a new scam because I just had another one come in. Let me just check it again just to be sure. Look at the Find My app and see. Is there anything going on? Oh, there is one that says Huafa Road. I don't know. Where's Huafa Road? But that could be the road that I'm on now. So anyway, I don't know. We'll figure it out. Let's see what this is. Oh yeah, there is one in China. Okay, let's remove this device. So sure enough, there was. Okay, what is, oh shoot. All right. Oh, I gotta get, okay. Well, that is true. Somebody did steal my identity in China. So that's actually real. And they're probably trying to do something with it. So I have to remember my password and figure out what it is. But yeah, isn't that interesting that that would happen right now twice? I got to think about what the password is. I think I know what it is, but anyway, that's a good reason to wind it down here, because I want to take care of this before anybody steals too much of my money. Don't click on anything. Yeah, but I'm in the Find My app, Find My iPhone thing, and there is one in China on Huangfang Street. So imagine that. It makes me a little bit nervous, but whatever. I'll remember what my password is as soon as I'm not talking online anymore. Okay. So in short, among all the other crazy, very disruptive events, I mean, we just saw another shooting today. There could be extraterrestrial activity. This could be the end of the game, the very final stages of what we've been expecting to happen. I wouldn't encourage you to be upset about it. I would encourage you to be relaxed and confident and peaceful. And we're going to get through this together, because if they do something like this, it's going to be okay. The positive, benevolent forces do exist. The alliance vastly outnumbers what they could do. They're going to get shot down immediately. It's not going to turn out the way they want. And if this event happens, I have no idea where it's going to go. It might be that arrests happen right away. It might be that the alliance's police actions we've been expecting happen right away. Things are going to get very hot, very interesting, very quickly. So again, I encourage you to be positive. I encourage you to hold the light. And in fact, let's log out of your iPhone, change your ID and password, and do a reset. That's a great idea. But I got to get the existing password to change the password. So I'm going to do this when I get off the air. But right for now, let's just do a little meditation here. So I'd like you to close your eyes, put both feet flat on the floor. Take a nice deep breath. And let it go. Moving into the silence, feeling the peace that surpasses understanding. Awakening to the stillness of this moment. Breathing in a positive, successful timeline for humanity. Working through all of our difficulties, working through our challenges as best we can. Let yourself breathe and feel your mind focusing to a small point, like an orb of light. Going into that moment of peace, that moment of tranquility. Just let yourself relax and feel the gratitude for being alive in this amazing moment in history. If this does happen, it's going to change everything. And we're going to move through this all with grace, with ease, learning to be peaceful, learning to just take time to be in the stillness, take time to be in the peace right now. Sending your healing energy to yourself, learning to love yourself, to be more kind, more compassionate, more patient with yourself, sending it out to the world. Visualizing a peaceful outcome to all this struggle, all these things that could make you afraid. Seeing that there is a golden thread of positivity that underlines everything. And being able to just breathe into the certainty of the positive future that awaits us. And being able to just breathe into the certainty of the positive future that awaits us. Taking each breath one by one, feeling that calm waving over you, the relaxation, the tranquility, knowing that all is well and we will be okay, that we will get through this just fine. No big deal. It's all going to be okay. Sending this healing energy to all those in need of it on Earth and throughout the cosmos, seeing the Earth bathed in white light and living consciousness, feeling the energy, if you so choose, of the Christ consciousness, the one infinite creator. Breathing healing through all the parts of your body that might be in pain, might experience muscle numbness, soreness, resistance. Just letting yourself relax, ever more relaxed all the time. Feeling that peace spreading throughout the world, feeling it easing the tension of war and conflict, of fear and uncertainty, and moving into trust, moving into this golden age, this awakening that we have all earned by our own good works. We have not authorized any type of planetary negativity. And if this happens, it will be very different than what they expect. Sending this energy back to yourself, recognizing in the greatest sense you are the light, you are the love, you are the one infinite creator. And this is as it was, as it is now, and as it always shall be. And nothing and no one can ever take that from you. And so it is. All right. We're still live, but we're going to end it in just a second. So I want to thank you guys for being here. The Jeweled Heart Meditation says, thank you, Jesus, and thank you, David. Yeah, we should all meditate. It's really nice. I feel much calmer now. I doubt these people are going to be able to do too much with my iPhone. I think I know what my password is, but I don't want to be on camera trying to guess it. And I think there's a way I can find it in the Apple computer anyway. So I'm going to be fine. We're going to get this thing taken away. But wow, what a weird thing, huh? Somebody hacks my phone. First time in my whole life that's ever happened while I'm on the air. Don't use the hotel Wi-Fi. There's a good point. Well, that's what I've been doing, but we're about to leave. So I guess this won't happen again. And I'll change my password too. Anyway, I want to thank you guys for being here today. It's been great to do this. The whistleblower died in a car crash, according to news report. I'm not sure which whistleblower that is, but that's very sad if that's true. Anyway, the meditation was awesome. Somebody said blue background, David's on vacation. Anyway, you guys are awesome, and I want to thank you so much for being here. You really do support me with your presence. And maybe this coming week, I'll get these slides recorded in another show. We'll upload that to YouTube. Hopefully it'll go through. It'll be a good test. I'll probably make it a shorter show because if it doesn't work, then I'm out of luck. Or maybe I'll put it on Twitter or something. X, I don't know. We'll find out. Anyway, thank you guys for being here. I guess if nothing else, I could probably put it on X. So remember, my X is David_Wilcock. And you can always go to thedisclosure.com, enter in the discount code actualization. You get my course for, again, $177. Thank you guys for watching. We love you. And let's hope that whatever happens is going to be nice and smooth. We've called it in with a global meditation. And I will see you guys very soon. Thanks for watching.